Chapter 11. And you're certain that the Kyuubi no Jinchuriki has left Konoha? Asked the holographic image of a man dressed in black robes with red clouds, his eyes gazing out without emotion. Across from him was a being of black and white with what looked like a Venus flytrap around his body. Yes, we've confirmed it, he has traveled out of the village with Jiraiya of the Sannin. The man's rippled purple eyes narrowed. I see, and where is he now? We don't know where he's going, but it appears that he's currently in Kawa no Kuni. Rumor has it that he killed one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. Oh? A blue-skinned, shark-toothed man smiled. That's interesting. Which one was it? Raiga. The white half of the being said. He is now the wielder of the Kiba, said the black half. The rippled-eyed man was silent for a moment, letting the information sink in. The boy is growing to be quite troublesome. Itachi, Kisame, you two will track him down so we may imprison him until his time comes. We still have 2 years before we can begin to move. Within that time, the Sanbai should have reformed since the death of its previous host. What about the host of the Rokubi? Asked a blond man with an eye patch. Do we know where he is yet? No, the rippled-eyed man said, we still haven't gotten any leads. Kakuzu, your sources are good at finding bounties for you to take in. Place a bounty on this man, and find his location. You and Haiden will then keep an eye on him. When it is his time, I will retrieve him myself. What about Orochimaru? Rasped a hunched-over figure. My spy is still in his holdings. And from what I've heard, Uchiha Sasuke has joined his ranks. Itachi's red eyes narrowed for a moment, betraying a small amount of rage from this information. He will be dealt with in time, the ripple-eyed man said, perhaps sooner than we think. I have heard that he has an interest in the Sanbai as well. Toby, you will also keep an eye on him. If he moves against the Sanbai, deal with him. A giggle came from the last member present, his face hidden behind an orange mask, and a single hole for his lone eye. Toby's gonna do good, Leader Sama, 'cause Toby's a good boy. Kawa no Kuni X. Naruto and the other were treated to a party for the liberation of the mining town, but one thing weighed heavily on the mind of a certain blonde shinobi as he watched to the goings-on of the village. For the first time in his life, he had killed in cold blood instead of using his Rasengan. Never before had he not used the massive chakra to end someone's life. The land of snow, the Crescent Moon Kingdom, and the valley he had found that stone. But this time he'd used a weapon, and the blood now covering his hands was like a beacon to him. Even though he had long washed it away, it was still there. And then there was the fact that he had failed to protect someone precious to him. The sight of Tayuya being shocked to death would stay with him until his dying days. The blonde sighed as he watched the others having fun, his eyes on Tayuya as she doted on Ranmaru as his newly aged body. From what Tsunade had told them, Ranmaru was now a healthy 9-year-old, capable of walking. A fact that the boy was ecstatic about. Tsunade again cautioned him about the use of his jujutsu, saying that he wasn't able to control the flow of his chakra while using his healing abilities derived from the Tensigen. He would age yet again since he had a still small chakra reserve. But Neji was the one that Naruto watched the closest. His interest in Ranmaru was disturbing to say the least. After Jiraiya had told them about what may happen to Ranmaru if he went to the Leaf Village, now didn't sit well with the blonde or his temperamental companion, or any of them for that matter. Before the party had got underway, Neji had pulled the boy aside and showed him the basic Juken stances and movements, showing him the way to see an opponent's chakra points, and explained how to close them. It had surprised Naruto to no end that the normally stoic Hyuga had done such a thing. Oi, shithead, Tayuya said, startling him out of thoughts as she came up behind him. What are you doing up here by yourself? She sat down beside him. Something bugging ya? Naruto smirked, sorta. I don't know what's wrong with me. He mumbled, scratching the back of his head, blushing. He asked, are you doing okay? I mean, you did take that right-ton from me and dash. Never fucking better, Tayuya smiled at him while flexing her arms. Takes more than that to keep me, Naruto turned toward her and wrapped his arms around her, causing the redhead to blush furiously. Naruto, what are you doing? Don't ever do that again, he whispered, clutching her against him. Do you know how much that killed me inside to see you go down like that? He tightened his hold on her, and she felt him shaking, realizing that he was scared. In the meantime, her heart was hammering into her rib cage. She'd been held by him before, but not like this. She'd never given it any thought, but she'd only ever hugged her parents when she still lived with them. Naruto. I was scared, he said. I thought I'd lost another friend. I can't let that happen again. So please, don't do that again, I can't take it. Tayuya was more than a little shocked by this. Why can't I protect my friends, too? She asked as she unconsciously wrapped her arms around his back. Don't you think I wanted to protect you if I jumped in like that? I mean, it'd hurt me if you died, too. That's the thing, Naruto said, pulling back, I'm not easy to kill. He moved the robes of his Hyri back and showed her two very nasty scars on his chest. One on his right chest, over a lung, and the other directly over his heart. The girl gasped. The wounds should have been fatal. What the fuck? Sasuke did this, Naruto said, replacing his robes. He told me that we were best friends, and that with my death, he could achieve the Manjikyu Sharingan. He sighed, placing his hand over the right side of his chest. He stabbed me with his Chidori here, first. But, I healed myself, and went on the offensive. But that curse mark of his gave him a boost, and he was able to nail me again. I don't know how I survived that last one. Luck, I guess. But, fuck, either one of these should have killed you. Tayuya said angrily, looking up at him, how can you keep going after that son of a bitch after he's done all this to you? Aren't you afraid he'll do the same? He nodded. If he's with Orochimaru, then I'm betting the next time we see each other that we'll be at each other's throats. But that doesn't matter. I made a promise to someone that I'd bring him back, and I was also taught by my sensei that those that break the rules are scum. Damn right they are. She snapped. But those that abandon their comrades are worse than scum. Naruto finished, smirking at her. So you see, if I just forgot about him, and left him to his fate, I'd be worse than he is. Tayuya kept her mouth shut this time, not knowing how to argue with him this time. He was set, and what was more, he was making sense. If it were him, she would be going after him. She reached up and placed a hand on his chest. If we find him, and he tries to kill you again, you gotta promise that you won't let him, got it? If he doesn't come easily, you have to do what's necessary to live. I don't fucking care about some bullshit promise that you made. I don't want you to die, either. Naruto just laughed. You'd probably bring me back just so you could kick my ass for failing. Tayuya smirked and gave his cheek a hard pinch and pull. Damned straight I would. X equals. Unbeknownst to the pair, two others were watching them. Still having doubts about the girl, Haim? Jiraiya asked his old teammate. Tsunade had a smile on her face as she watched Naruto rub his cheek. No, I really don't think I do. In a way, it's almost like I'm seeing Kushina brought back to life. She said, recalling the young Uzumaki girl. Naruto's just the same. Not really, Jiraiya said, he's more than a little like his father. And that scroll you sent him really sent him over the edge about sealing. I've never seen him work so hard on something in my life. Not even when I'm going after him in a spar. You should see some of the work he's done in just a few weeks. Tsunade quirked an eyebrow at him. Is he Jonin material? Not yet, Jiraiya shook his head. Maybe by the time we get back, but I'd like to see how far he can go with the four of us now. He has Tayuya, and now Ranmaru as teammates, so we'll see how he does at being a leader. Tsunade nodded to this, agreeing with his reasoning. So, what are your plans for the future? I mean, where do you go from here? Jiraiya grinned. I was thinking of going to Suna from here. The boy's got a powerful wind nature that needs training, and Suna is the best at wind-style ninjutsu. He gave her a small smirk. Unless you'd like Danzo to teach him? No. Wham! Yoch! Naruto and Tayuya were startled out of the moment by the yelp of the Sannin being slammed into the ground. What the? How could you even joke about something like that? Tsunade roared, picking Jiraiya up by his collar and shaking him. Are you out of your mind? Naruto just laughed. Sounds like Pervy Sage was being bad again. I was not. Jiraiya yelped, help me out here. Yeah, no fucking way am I getting in the middle of that. Tayuya smirked, enjoying the show. Besides, you deserve this after falling for that stupid clone trick Naruto pulled on you. That was days ago. Jiraiya yelled, and the brat played dirty. Naruto chuckled. Wanna head back to the party? He asked, offering her his hand. Tayuya nodded and took it, letting him lead her away from the beating. Oi! Where are you going? Jiraiya yelled after them as he tried to get away. Come back here and help me. X equals. Meanwhile, Ranmaru was having a fun time at the little party. As Naruto and Tayuya came back, he was found talking with Lee about multiple training exercises for his legs should they weaken again, and Neji was still giving him more points on the finer movements of the Juken. All the while Tenten and Sakura were chatting animatedly, but, upon seeing Naruto, Tenten bounded up to him. Naruto-kun, you gotta let me see those swords again. Tenten squealed with a pleading gesture, please. I wanna see if I can figure out how to recreate them. Naruto sweat dropped. Didn't you learn your lesson last time? Your hair's still a little frizzy. Is not. Tenten snapped, absently reaching up to smooth her hair down. After her initial attempt at examining the Kiba, she had quickly found out that touching them when they did not like you was a big mistake. The poor Kunoichi had been blasted back by a weak shock from the swords. But did that stop her? Of course not. Look, Tenten-chan, I know you want to look at these swords, but you can't touch them without getting shocked, or killing me first, he said, and noticed a slight gleam in the girl's eye that made him shiver, almost like she wanted to try that second option. But a growl from Tayuya set her straight, and snapped her out of that thought. As soon as we find a way to keep that from happening, you can look as much as you want, okay? Rubber gloves might help? Tenten mused, though clearly disappointed. Do you fucking have a pair? Tayuya asked in annoyance. Well, no, but then just forget about for now, okay? Tayuya said, it's not like shithead's gonna up and disappear. Tenten pouted, he's gonna be gone for 3 years. Tenten-san, Sakura called out, leave them alone. It's not every day that Naruto gets a girl dash. Finish that, Pinky, and I'll show you just how far a kunai can be shoved up your. Alright. Naruto yelled, enough's enough. We didn't come here to fight, we came here to party. Now let's get to it. Yes, I agree. Lee said, raising a glass of liquid, it is most unyouthful for new friends to fight, especially after a great victory such as this. I propose a toast to new friendships. With that he threw back his drink, and Niji suddenly realized something. Lee! Don't drink, too late. Niji groaned as Lee became red in the face, his eyes falling to half-mast. Lee staggered to his feet, and looked straight at Naruto, who was sweating heavily. Oi, what you looking at? You wanna fight? Oh. Tayuya was looking at the staggering genin in confusion. What the hell's with bushy brow? What'd you call me? Before anyone had time, or sense enough to knock him out, Lee launched himself at the pair. And that's when the party really got started. X equals. Ugh, my head feels like a paper bomb went off in it, Tayuya moaned when she woke up the next morning. She was bruised, battered, and worse, hungover, again. That's it, I never want to see another fucking drop of sake again. Something stirred beside her, and Naruto's blob of blonde hair popped up from under a blanket. Man oh man, remind me never to invite Bushibrow to another party that serves alcohol again. He groaned, rubbing a lump on his head. I knew he was nuts, but that was insane. Tayuya squinted at him. Better have a good reason for being in my fucking bed, shithead, she growled at him, in no mood for gags, jokes, or any sort of merriment, not with the headache she had right now. Naruto sat up and kicked the blanket off. You kidding? He asked, this is my room. I carried you back here after we got away from Lee. He flexed his arms and winced. Damn it, that guy hits hard when he's drunk. Yeah, no shit, Tayuya groaned, wincing at the loudness of her own voice. Dear Kami, I never want to do this again. She toppled over and back onto the futon, pulling it over her head. Wake me when the world stops being so loud. Naruto rolled his eyes and tugged at the mattress. Come on, Tayuya-chan, we're leaving today, remember? The villagers wanted to give us a proper send-off. Don't give a shit, she mumbled from her hiding spot, my head's killing me. Naruto laughed and peeked under the edge, seeing Tayuya scowling at him. Get out of my bed, Tayuya-chan. Bite my ass, Blondie, she rolled over, resigned to try and ignore him. But that thought went to hell in a hand basket, said Blonde started tickling her. Ah. Quit it you jackass. Tayuya squealed, and kicked at him. Naruto laughed and backed off enough for Tayuya to sit up. She glared at the boy angrily. What the fuck's your problem, shithead? Can't you let me sleep a little? Sorry, but Pervy Sage said we're leaving early, Naruto said. He wants to get a move on before Kiri moves on us to retrieve my swords. Tayuya groaned and flopped back on the blankets. Ugh, just give em the damn things. Nope, the blonde grinned. Now come on and get packed, or I'll start tickling you again. Besides, Ranmaru's excited to get going. I'll bet he is, Tayuya snipped, rolling to her feet. What about that Hyuga that was so interested in him? Niji? He's been trying to convince him to go back to the village with him, but Ranmaru's pretty stoked about coming with us. Naruto said, smiling, but he's being a really good sport about it. He even asked Pervy Sage if he would allow him to take the boy back for training in the Juken, and you know what he said? What? Tayuya frowned. Ask the Gaki's guardians, Naruto said, meaning you and me are responsible for Ranmaru. Great, Tayuya said, palming herself in the face. Terrific, that means he's pretty much put us down as the kid's parents. Not really, Naruto smirked, though he was sporting a small blush. We're more like his Oniai-san, and Wani-san, right? Tayuya grumbled as she moved about collecting her things. Better than Oto-san, and Oka-san. Kid's old enough to be my kid brother now. Naruto started packing his things, rolling up the blankets and the futon. Yeah, Bachan pretty much forbid him to use that Tensigen again until he can handle it without it aging him again. Pervy Sage said he'd put him through some extreme chakra exercises once we're far enough out. What about making his reserves bigger, she asked. That'd help a whole hell of a lot. That's what I said, but he said, control first, deepening later. Naruto sighed as he shouldered his pack. He wants to make sure that Ranmaru can control the flow of chakra he has to channel into his eyes before he helps fill up his reserves. Makes sense, turn around, she said, and started untying her belt. Naruto blushed and did as she asked. So, where are we going next? He heard her ask. Suna, Naruto said quickly, hoping he didn't sound too nervous, and smiled, I can't wait to see Gaara again. And Temari and that makeup-wearing brother of theirs. Pfft, Tayuya sputtered, can't imagine I'm gonna make a lot of friends there. It was a fucking Suna bitch that put me under those trees. That was Temari, Naruto sighed, and don't worry about that, you've got me and Pervy Sage looking out for you, remember? He chanced to look over his shoulder, catching a glimpse of her bare back for a moment before whipping back around. If I say you're our friend, then they won't hurt you. Tayuya slipped on a fresh top and tied the belt, giving him a small smile that he couldn't see, thanks. But you know that I can take care of myself, right? She grinned and tapped him on the shoulder, telling he could turn around. If that sand bitch tries anything this time, I'll give her a taste of my Onodoro. Besides, I could use a little payback, she gave him a little wink. Meanwhile Konohagakure no Sato X. Achoo! Gross, Shikamaru sighed as he walked his, unknown to most, favorite blonde through the village. Temari, if you give me a cold, then you're gonna have to find yourself a new escort, we Naras have very poor immune systems. Temari smirked at him, translation, Nara men will take any opportunity they can get to be as lazy as they want, be it illness or not. She giggled at the Nara boy's scowl. Oh, come off it, that's as true as the fact that my brother wears make you, war paint. Shikamaru rolled his eyes, whatever, it's too troublesome to explain it. Anyway, what brings you here this time? More documents for the Hokage? Temari shrugged, no idea, all I know is that Baki-sensei said that a few more things needed to be hammered out between us, and the peace treaty would finally be in full swing. Which means we'll be less likely to see each other, Shikamaru finished on a sigh, unless one of us becomes the village ambassador. Placing her hands behind her back, Temari nodded, yeah, you got it. So, I take it that that kind of job is too troublesome? She gave him a cheeky look. Shikamaru scoffed, it's just a bunch of paperwork, traveling, and knowing how to kiss the right asses. Temari laughed outright at that, seeing that he was right, in all prospects of the job. Shikamaru smiled at her, see, I can do the job if I get my Jonin promotion, I just need someone to submit my application. Temari bumped into him with her shoulder, you know, you could get that promotion on your own if you wanted? She grinned, you're just too lazy to do it. Troublesome woman, he grinned back, and stopped, as they were in front of the Hokage mansion. Well, I guess this is where I wait. See you tonight? Temari asked hopefully. Shikamaru smirked, it'd be troublesome for me not to be here. Temari grumbled a moment, then gained a smirk of her own, reaching up on her toes and pecking him on the cheek, making the young Nara blush heavily. Good, I'll see you tonight at my hotel. We can have dinner in the lobby. Temari darted up the steps and inside, not giving Shikamaru any time to recover. As for the Nara heir, he simply stood there, stiff as the proverbial board. He reached up and touched the cheek she had kissed, looking after the young woman. Toussaint was right, women are way too troublesome, but damn do they know how to turn things around. As Temari knocked on the door, she heard a loud scuffle from the inside of the room of the Hokage's office, a yelp, and a curse, then a loud thud. She raised her eyebrow in question as the door came open, revealing a harassed-looking Kakashi, and, sitting on the couch in her usual pose, a clearly agitated Mitarashi Anko. Ah, Temari-san, what a pleasant surprise! Kakashi said hurriedly. The Kopinin was the last person she expected to greet her. Is the Hokage in? I have the finalized documents from the council about the treaty. Anko snickered, you're looking at the Hokage, sweet cheeks, Tsunade's out of the village. Temari's eyebrows nearly shot off the top of her head, she made you Hokage? And threatened to ban his Ika books if he refused, Anko laughed. Kakashi stepped aside to allow her entry, don't remind me, Anko-san. He returned to his desk while Temari stepped inside, setting a folder she'd been holding under her arm on the desk in front of him. Kakashi smiled under his mask, and opened the folder. As he read, a smile wider than his previous one filled his mask. He looked up at Temari with his usual eye smile, do you know what these are, Temari-san? Much like a puppy would, Temari cocked her head to the side in confusion, sorry, but no. I'm just the delivery person this time. I see, he chuckled, replacing the documents in the folder, well, I think that it's safe to say that everything is in order. The treaty is set. Temari beamed at him, now, I'd say, after your long walk here, you've earned a long respite. I'm sending a messenger hawk to the Sand Village, letting them know that I've given you permission to stay a few days in the company of a guard should anyone decide it wise to attack you. In that time, I hope you enjoy your stay. That's very generous of you, Hokage-sama. Ugh, no offense, but I don't think I'll ever be used to calling you that, Kakashi-san. Temari blushed slightly, though most of it was at the thought of staying in the village for a time. Oh, I completely understand, Kakashi said, smiling again. Now, off you go. Wouldn't want you to spend your little vacation here, would we? Temari nodded and was out the door faster than Enko could say dango. Enko looked back at the acting Hokage. Okay, what was on the file? Nothing's gotten you that happy in a week. Kakashi leaned back in his seat, completely at ease. Oh, let's just say that Baki-san and the Suna Council came up with a fine idea to cement our relations. Enko got up from the couch and sauntered to the door, and Kakashi felt a bit of dread run up his back as she locked the door. Well, if you don't want to tell me, she said in a purr, looking back over her shoulder at him, I guess I'll have to resort to drastic means. Drastic means? Kakashi stammered, beginning to sweat. Now Enko-san, we've been through this. While I'll admit that I've enjoyed, the office is totally off limits. Off came Enko's coat. You didn't seem to mind 10 minutes ago. Not everyone in this village is nice enough to knock. X sad face and, poor Kakashi. Some weeks later found a troop of 4 crossing the borders of Kiri back into Konoha territory. This troop was none other than Jiraiya, and his apprentices. Except now he had 3 instead of 2. Young Ranmaru was trailing behind Naruto and Tayuya at a slower pace, his legs still getting used to being able to move properly. They were well out of Kiri domain, and there was little chance that anyone from the village coming for Naruto's blades. Konoha was still jumpy from the failed invasion by Oto, and had border patrols all over the place, even here, where it seemed to be more remote than any part of its territory. This was where everything would start over again. As Jiraiya came into a clearing by a small lake, this is a likely spot to start training again, he said, smiling at the trio. Alright, what we're going to do, well, you're all going to go through hell. We've already done that, Naruto said. Remember when you tied me up in that tree? This is going to be worse, the Sannin smirked, because you're going to through the true Uzumaki training regiment. Naruto paled when he remembered what that entailed, 2 boulders instead of 1. I'm outta here. Naruto roared and whipped around in fear. Kuchios! No sooner had the blonde reached the tree line, than a large wet tongue wrapped around his middle and hauled him back. Gamma was croaking out a laugh as he reeled the boy in. Thank you, Gamma-san. Jiraiya grinned. Now, as for Ranmaru-chan, you'll be going through some basic chakra exercises, as a start, then we'll work you into some more intense training to expand your chakra reserves, he said, patting the boy on the head. Hi, sensei. The boy smiled. Tayuya-chan, the redhead jolted, you're going to be right there beside Naruto. Fuck me. Like Naruto, she turned tail and tried to run, but, since she was close to Jiraiya, he simply reached out and grabbed her by the back of her kimono top. Oh, you ain't going nowhere, Jiraiya said in a sinister tone. I promised that you'd go through a hellish training program, and that's what you're going to get. Welcome to Jiraiya's badass boot camp. I want my mother. Tayuya howled. Gamma-san, let me out. Naruto yelled from inside Gamma's mouth. For some reason the toad had seen fit to pull him all the way in. Ranmaru smiled. This sounds like fun. That brat has no idea what he's getting into, said a certain fox as he enjoyed his container's misery. Chapter 12. It was just another quiet day in Konoha when Tsunade and her ragtag team entered the gates, greeted by Izumo and Kotetsu. As usual, welcome back, Tsunade-sama. Izumo smiled. Did everything go all right? Tsunade offered the man a smile, as well as can be expected when Jiraiya and Naruto are involved. How are things here since I left Kakashi in charge? Kotetsu snickered. Oh, he's been running things smoothly all right, but that doesn't mean he's kept out of trouble. Yeah, Izumo grinned. Enko-san's been seen dragging him back to the office more times than I can count, and the council members always seem to be chasing him for some reason or another. Before she could say anything to that, Niji walked up beside her. Hokage-sama, would it be alright for me to return to the compound? Stop right there, young man, Tsunade barked with a glare. I know exactly what you want to run and tell Hayashi, and it is as of this moment an S-rank secret. You remember what I told you would happen if this leaked out? Niji looked discouraged for a moment, but this needs to be reported. No matter how much I dislike the ways of my clan, it's my duty. Tsunade raised a brow at the boy, a little surprised that he would suggest going against her orders, even for a moment, but... Alright, then, you will only tell that you encountered a member of Raiga's gang that had that ability, and that he fled the battle after Raiga was bested by one of our shinobi. Under no circumstances are you to mention his name, his age, or what he may look like. Understood? I understand, it will be difficult to lie, but I think I am able to do it. Niji said, if I can keep my chakra from fluctuating too much, it'll simply look like I've just overexerted myself on the mission. Tsunade nodded, good, remember what could happen to him if word of his abilities got out. Ranmaru's Byakugan alone was far more powerful than any she'd ever seen. Unlike the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan, who had a blind spot that not many knew about just behind the left shoulder, where their heart was, Ranmaru didn't have that blind spot. Niji had tested that thoroughly. In the light spars they had engaged in as Niji sought to teach him what he could, the strikes he'd sent toward that one spot had been blocked with almost practiced ease. It had surprised them both when Ranmaru had done this, which was why Niji had pushed so much for the boy to return with them, in vain as it proved since he seemed to cling to Naruto and Tayuya. Gangway. The group turned toward the loud voice as one Kiba Inuzuka came barreling down the streets with what looked like a giant boulder right behind him. I said I was sorry, Choji. Who cares? Yelled the boulder, now identified as Choji Akamichi, Chubby's rule. Bark bark, right behind the two teens was an equally boisterous Akamaru, looking just a little bigger than when last they had seen the young Nin-ken. Sakura giggled as the pair passed them, looks like Kiba broke the taboo. You'd think he'd learn his lesson, Tenten sighed, palming her face, never call an Akamichi remotely fat, or chubby. Lee looked after the pair with a raised brow, it is most youthful to see them getting along, but very unyouthful of Kiba to hurt his friend's feelings like that. Inuzuka are rarely considerate of others, Niji said, his normal attitude returning, and it would seem that Kiba is no different. I do not care for how he leers at Hinata-sama either. Tsunade rolled her eyes, come along, you may all return to your homes and rest, Sakura, come with me to the tower, please. Yes, ma'am, the genin said, the rosette following after the blonde. Meanwhile, with today's pair equals. Temari sighed in depression. Not because she'd had a bad stay, far from it, but because today she had to return home. Her week was up. And, much to her surprise, Shikamaru had been by her side the entire time. Not that she was complaining. The night they'd had dinner at her hotel was nice, he'd even brought flowers for her, and they had been her favorite, desert lilies. They reminded her of home for a moment that it brought a small bit of moisture to her eyes. The result of that little, she hesitated to call it a date, but the result had been far more than what she'd expected. He'd walked her up to her room, and leaned in to kiss her cheek, but a moment of thought changed that when she turned her head ever so slightly so that her lips were right in his path. Temari had never, ever had the opportunity to kiss someone, let alone a boy, yet when their lips met, she felt like she was going to melt. Shikamaru had held her tight and deepened the kiss, pressing her up against the wall as things became heated between them. It was the first time that she had seen the young Nara be so bold around her. And she wasn't sorry. His hands didn't wander, however, and she was grateful for that. It wouldn't do for the man she had interest in to be a pervert. When they broke apart, she found herself actually considering inviting him in for the night. A thought that she later berated herself for. Of course, she had put all that down to her teenage hormones, because Shikamaru had backed off right away when he realized just what the hell had happened, and was blushing furiously. It was a sight that Temari wouldn't soon forget. Now, however, she was dreading the end of the day. And Shikamaru wasn't around for once. Where is he? She wondered aloud, with things cooling down between our villages, it won't be long until I won't see him for a while. Meanwhile, said Nara was currently standing in the Hokage's office with the still-acting Hokage. And he was not happy at all. You're seriously just telling me this now? The boy snapped. Kakashi merely smiled at him with his eye. Well, I thought that your little fling with her was much more than that, but it seems that, perhaps, I was wrong if this is your reaction, Kakashi said. You don't seem all that upset about the situation, even though I've heard that you've been by her side for the whole week she's been here. He said, recalling a particular encounter reported to him by the Umbu he'd had shadowing the young woman and her escort. But, perhaps you do care about her enough to fight for her? She doesn't need me to fight for her, Shikamaru snapped, finally growing angry. Believe me, if she heard about this, then she'd rip you to shreds with her fan. Kakashi chuckled, but she would see the logic in Suna's choice, and they've been quite generous in the affair, seeing as they are allowing her to choose in the long run. Most villages would simply pair a couple up and be done with it. But since she is the daughter of a Kage, she has her pick of any of our young men in the village. Anko nodded in agreement, but you know it has to be one of the clan heirs, well, unless you count Niji. He's from the branch family. He's in direct relation with Hayashi-san, Kakashi pointed out, very close, actually. He's his nephew. But she has a point, out of all the clans, there are 5 young men that fit the bill, and you happen to be one of them, aren't you lucky? Shikamaru sneered, and what do you expect me to do? Run out to sweep her off her feet like some gallant prince? He shook his head at the very thought of it. That's not me. Do I look like I can do that sort of thing? We've barely just. Again he shook his head as memories of their date flashed through his mind, making him blush. Oh? Kakashi smirked, and just how far have you gone with the Sunaheim? That's none of your business. Shikamaru snapped, Kami, I hate this. What gave you guys the rights to interfere with our lives like this? The fact that Suna wants to bury the hatchet with something substantial. Kakashi said, resting his chin on his laced fingers, and there is nothing more substantial than an arranged marriage between clan heirs or a pair of high-ranking shinobi. Here, we have both, you are a clan heir, and she is a rising kunoichi in her village. That doesn't make it right. Shikamaru roared. Enko snickered, well, Kakashi, looks like we've got our answer from this one. He obviously doesn't want to get involved with her. She said, pushing off from her spot on the desk, guess I'll go get Kiba and see if that little horn dog wants to G. Shikamaru's fists came crashing down on the desk, making the wood creak in protest, like hell. So you want to be the one? Kakashi asked playfully, enjoying the boy's reaction. No. The boy growled, what I want is for her to choose me on her own. Not because of some damned arranged marriage. Kakashi nodded his understanding, then you have your answer. And it couldn't be better. He said, much to the confusion of the boy, listen Shikamaru, I once lost someone I loved dearly, and it's haunted me to this day. Though you may not be in the same situation as I was, you stand to lose just as much. Because one way or another, Temari will have to choose someone before she comes of age in the next 3 years, and honestly, I'd rather see her marry the one she loves rather than be forced to choose purely based on clan status. And you cannot deny your feelings for the girl, it's as plain as the nose on your face. But we haven't known each other long enough. Love can take time, Kakashi said, nodding again, but it can also take a single look between two people, and there it is. So, whether it takes that one glance, or years, it happens, and it has happened to you too, whether you believe me or not. Temari's leaving soon, Enko said, and when she gets back to Suna, she'll find out about this whole thing, and probably get mad at you for not speaking up. Then she'll probably choose someone else out of spite. She's not spiteful. Shikamaru growled. Then get going, Kakashi smirked under his mask, it'd be best for you to catch her before she leaves, but I'll give you permission to leave the village to catch up with her. Shikamaru was going to do just that, that is until the door opened, and Shizen walked in, Kakashi-san, Temari-san wanted me to tell you she's leaving now, and to thank you for THAIE. The poor woman was nearly knocked to the ground by a speeding Nara rushing past her. What was that about? Kakashi chuckled, oh, that was just a little boy just taking his first steps into manhood, he said, smiling behind his mask. On a different note, how's Irika doing? Shizen blushed at the question, catching her completely off guard. Enko snickered again, whoops, looks like she's caught. I am not. X equals. Damn it, where'd she go? Shikamaru growled as he raced through the village, she couldn't have left already. He rounded a corner and slammed into someone. Shit, ow. Watch where you're going. Kiba growled, rubbing his head, and looked up, what the? Shikamaru? Sorry, Kiba, the Chunin said, dusting himself off, you didn't see Temari around here, did you? Kiba shook his head, nah, man, I've been trying to get away from. Varuum. Ah shit? Kiba scrambled to his feet, see ya, Shika. Yippee-ki-yay motherfucker. Roared a larger rolling boulder as it gave chase. Choji, cool it. Shikamaru yelled after his longtime friend. He then got to his feet and continued his search, hoping he'd catch her in time. X equals. Leaving so soon, Temari-san? Izumo asked as the Suna Kunoichi approached them, thought you might stay a little longer? Temari smiled at the pair, no, I need to get home. It's already been a week, and I feel like you guys are spoiling me with all the kindness you've shown me since the invasion. Ah, don't bring up old stuff like that, Kotetsu smirked, besides, we all know that it wasn't your idea to attack us like that, and Orochimaru got sent packing with that scaly tail between his legs. Temari giggled, well, thank you all the same, if you see Shikamaru-kun. Kakashi called him to his office earlier today, Izumo said, sighing, but I just spoke with Tsunade-sama just a few minutes ago, so I bet it won't be long before he comes racing after you. If only, the girl thought. Thanks, but I really have to get going. I want to make sure that my brothers aren't causing Baki-sensei any trouble. Safe journey then, the pair said, waving as the girl set out. Ah, man, Shikamaru's gonna be pissed that Kakashi made him miss her. Izumo sighed. Yeah, you got that right, Kotetsu said, but he probably doesn't care, after all, he's got that hot little snake to keep him company. He grinned, but with the way Anko is? I'm betting he's not always having fun. Think that's bad? Izumo smirked, wait till Tsunade-sama get through with them. Guys. The pair looked back down the street, seeing Shikamaru running toward them. Did Temari already leave? Yup, they said, pointing down the road at a small speck of black that was Temari, already moving fast. Shit. Again, surprising for any Nara, Shikamaru took off. Oi! Shikamaru, come back. Kakashi gave me permission. He yelled back at the two Chunin. Talk later. The two Chunin looked after the boy's retreating figure, then both of them burst out laughing. Oh, the wedding bells will ring. Ding dong ding. Wahaha. Shut up. Shikamaru roared over his shoulder, having overheard them. Temari was moving at a slow pace, considering how eager she was to get home, but she still felt bad about leaving without telling Shikamaru anything before. But seeing as he was in a meeting with the Hokage, there was little she could do about it, and she hated goodbyes anyway. And the pleasant way things had been going, well, she knew that it would have been a long goodbye. Still, she sighed and thought, it would have been nice to see him again before I. Temari. She froze. Had she really heard that? She turned around slowly, feeling a presence behind her, and found a panting, sweating Shikamaru. Damn it, woman, what were you thinking? He gasped out, you just left without saying anything. Temari, a little miffed about his tone, placed her hands on her hips, well sorry, but I did wait for you, you lazy bum. 3 hours, and you never showed up, like you said you would. And then I found out you'd been summoned by the Hokage, so I figured it'd be better for both of us if I went ahead and left. Better? Shikamaru snapped incredulously, are you kidding? What gave you that idea? Of course I wanted to see you. Temari's expression softened, sorry. She said as Shikamaru recovered his breath, and came toward her, I really didn't thin MPH. He grabbed her around the waist and brought her in for a kiss. Surprised by the sudden action, she struggled for a moment or two before she found herself molding herself against him and returning the kiss. They broke apart after a moment, both breathing harder than usual as Temari gave him a smile, wow, where did that come from? Dunno, Shikamaru said, guess I just didn't want you to leave, yet. Temari smirked and nuzzled against his neck, you know I can't stay away for long, and this is the longest I've ever been away, except for the Chunin exams. About that, Shikamaru said, scratching his cheek nervously, the reason Kakashi called me was, well, that document you delivered last week. What about it? Temari asked, becoming worried. Kakashi seemed to like what it said. Well, he did, but that's not the point, Shikamaru said, that was an arranged marriage proposal. Temari looked up at him in shock. And, who was the intended? You were. Shikamaru said. X equals. Think he caught up to her yet? Izumo asked. Beats. What? Both Chunin looked down the road from which the shout had originated, both grinning. He found her. X equals. When I get my hands on Sensei, I'll stutter at him? Shikamaru suggested, earning a glare, look, Temari, it's not as bad as you think. Isn't it? She snapped, I'm being forced to marry someone. How is that not as bad? You get to choose? He shrugged. Temari stopped her raging for a moment, come again? Shikamaru sighed, look, it's like this, he said, holding up 5 fingers, there's 5 male clan heirs about your age that you could choose between. Myself, Kiba Inuzuka, Choji Akamichi, Shino Aburame, and Niji Hyuga, though he's not an heir, but he is from a strong clan. They're letting you choose your future husband. Temari grumbled, that still doesn't make it right for them not to run this by me first. She huffed as she crossed her arms, I can see the political side of all this, but they went behind my back and did all this before consulting me about what I might say. Shikamaru smirked slightly, probably because they knew you'd go ballistic. Yeah, that I can believe, Temari sighed, now I'm gonna have 4 more guys bothering me whenever I come around. No, you won't, Shikamaru said, Kakashi didn't tell the others, and he only told me today, since you were probably going to find out when you got home, anyway, and said he'd noticed how much time we'd been spending together, apparently he wants me to be your choice, but if you want to check out the other guys, I understand. Shikamaru said with a grimace, but, look, I'm not really that good with this sort of thing. Temari groaned, and smacked him on the shoulder, can't you just come out and say you like me like a normal guy would? Shikamaru blushed, I kinda thought that kiss said it all? Temari blushed, and snorted, giving him a playful shove, oh, don't get so cocky, lazy ass, because you are not as charming as you think you are. Shikamaru laughed along with her, watching her teal eyes dance with mirth and hidden mischief, so, what does this make us? Shikamaru shrugged. Well, not that I mind, but the decision's all up to you. He grinned as she pouted at him. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna let Kiba's horny ass around you anytime soon, though. As long as you want me around, I'm here for you. Temari smiled, lacing her hands around the back of his neck. Good answer, Shikakuin. She gave him a quick peck on the lips before pulling away from him. And I don't mind calling you my boyfriend. Short as it was, we get along, sorta, and your mom's really nice, even if your dad seems a little scared of her. You don't know the half of it, Shikamaru shivered, remembering a particular frying pan that had missed his father's head, and clanged right against his own. He still had a lump there. Temari giggled. I really have to go, now, but I'll see you soon? Every chance we get, Shikamaru smiled. Stay outta trouble. That's my line, you lazy bum, Temari said before turning away. Bye. Bye. X equals. Well, that went better than I'd hoped, Kakashi said to Tsunade as they watched the pair through the Sandame's old crystal ball. At least she didn't come flying back here and rip me a new one. Tsunade chuckled. Oh, I know how you feel. These political marriages are really fragile at times. It's lucky these two were already involved. You handled it very well, Kakashi-san. Just a matter of slight manipulation, calculation, and no small amount of luck, Kakashi said, smiling. At least we kept Kiba out of it. But remind to have a talk with Choji about the temper of his. Where are those two anyway? They should have been here hours ago. See how it feels? Enko sneered, and Choji's still rolling after Kiba. He really should have known better about insulting him like that. Mommy. I'm not fat, just big-boned. Crash. Kakashi and Tsunade dropped their heads. Why do I get the feeling that we're gonna get billed by the civilians? Welcome to my world, Tsunade sighed. Let's get started on the paperwork. Chapter 13. Yahahaha. Run you little bastards, run. Jiraiya roared gleefully, fear the power of the Gamma Sannin. Tayuya yelped as she ducked out of the way of a weak Rasengan aimed her way when the Sannin came too close for comfort. Are you fucking crazy? She tossed a kunai at him, which, for her, was well aimed for once, but Jiraiya just grinned and caught it in his teeth, with a ridiculous expression. Ha ha ha. Strike. And, yes, he's making the same face as he did when Naruto threw that ball at him while learning the Rasengan. Tayuya's eye twitched violently. This would so fucking funny if you weren't trying to kill me right now, you know that? Jiraiya twirled the kunai around his finger. Now how are you supposed to take this combat training seriously if I'm not going full throttle with you and Naruto? He asked with a smirk. I'm betting he's at least doing better with my other clone. Boom. Kawabunga. Said Blonde yelled as he was propelled between them in the forest, gaining a sweat drop from both of them. Jiraiya's second clone appeared on the scene with a huge grin on his face. How's your day going? He asked. Not bad, the other clone said, jerking his thumb at the downed Blonde, who was in a smoking heap at the base of a tree he'd hit. What happened to him? Tried that exploding clone on me like last time, he smirked. TCH, like that'd work a second time. Rookies, Tayuya's Jiraiya said with a roll of his eyes. All the while, said Redhead was slowly inching away from the dangerous clones. And just where do you think you're going, Tayuya-chan? Tayuya stiffened and turned almost mechanically. I gotta make a call. What kind of call? Both clones asked. This kind, she grinned before she scrabbled away. Help me. Get back here. Oh Naruto. Naruto woke up in a cold sweat when his Jiraiya clone called him. Time for more training. Jay, just kill me now. He groaned as the clone grabbed him by the back of his Hayari. Wonder how Ranmaru's doing. Ranmaru, to say the least, was faring better than his friends were, as in he was in one piece for the time being. Jiraiya-sensei, are you sure I'm doing this right? The boy asked as he balanced on the surface of the lake. It still feels strange. That's just the feeling of the chakra flowing to the bottom of your feet, Jiraiya said from the shore, a fishing pole in hand. It tickles a little, so it's a little more difficult than the tree climbing exercises you went through a few days ago. But I had a really hard time with that, Ranmaru said, almost whining as he recalled all the lumps he'd gotten on his head when he fell. And I can't swim. Don't worry, Ranchan, you're doing really good so far, he told the boy as he cast out, and I'll be here to help if you fall in. Tayuya-chan would murder me if something happened to you. Sensei, what are we gonna do about, whoa, my Byakugan? Ranmaru yelped as he tried to keep his balance, his feet falling under the surface from time to time. Niji-sensei said he could teach me more, but I didn't want to leave Oniai-chan and Wani-chan. Jiraiya hummed in thought for a moment. Niji certainly was a good teacher, but he had his own duties in the village and his team. But, tell you what, I'll send a message to Tsunadeheim and ask her to send him out here so he can teach you a little more about the Juken. Right about now, it'd probably help him out. Really? WHA. Splash. Oops, Jiraiya strolled out onto the water where Ranmaru was floundering to stay afloat. He picked the boy up by his robes and hoisted him out. We really need to work on your focus, Ranchan, you know that? Ranmaru bumped himself on the head slightly, sorry. Somebody catch me. Both shinobi looked up to see Tayuya careening toward them from above them. Jiraiya reached out and grabbed her before she hit the water. What the hell happened to you? Tayuya scowled at him. You ought to know, you're the one that threw me. Oh, Jiraiya smirked, sorry about that. No you're not, Tayuya pouted, slumping over. Why the hell couldn't I find a sensei that was normal? Jiraiya laughed loudly, before. Toom. Tayuya looked up, what the fuck was that? Jiraiya winced. That, my dear, was Naruto finally getting the better of my clone. He said, wincing again from the clone's memories, GAD. When that kid wants to blow shit up, he doesn't mess around. Tayuya sighed, I really need to get him to teach me that, she said, my Onodoro explosions would be so much better. Ranmaru laughed, when can I? Cannon Ba'il. Splash. They were all showered with water as a blonde blur crashed into the water leaving a smoking trail in his wake. Naruto's head popped out of the water, looking thoroughly satisfied. Now that's what I call a nice kaboom. Jiraiya sighed, a kid, a loudmouth, and a pyromaniac, some team this is. Who's the loudmouth? Tayuya asked. Ranmaru, Naruto and Jiraiya all looked at her. Tayuya growled, fuck all of you. I'm not that bad. Equals nearby equals. Are you sure this is the right person? Asked a woman. He's just a kid. No doubt about it, said a man next to her, young, dark-haired, and traveling with Jiraiya of the Sannin. This is definitely the right one. He said, sneering, we get him, and the rakeage will reward us big time. The woman next to him sighed, too bad he's so young, though. If he was a bit older, then I could have extracted a few samples. The man nearly laughed at her, since when has that stopped you? She huffed at him, I'll have you know, Jin, I do have morals, and fucking a gaki that young happens to be taboo for me. Even if he is who you say he is. Jin smirked at that, you're right, I guess. Kid's so young that his balls probably ain't dropped yet. So, we just take him. The woman scowled, and just how do you propose we do that? She asked, he's being protected by that old man down there, and we both know how strong that one is. Jin gave her a thin smile, that, my dear, you will leave to me. X equals. Niji was currently training in the courtyards of the Hyuga compound overseen by Hayashi Hyuga himself. His nephew, since his defeat in the Chunin exams, had come a long way. He no longer hated the main branch, at least not as much, and supported Hinata as the next clan head, seeing that she would bring about change, should she reach the position. But it didn't take the all-seeing eyes of the Hyuga clan to see that something was off about the boy today. Niji-kun, you're off balance. He said to the boy, is something wrong? Niji nearly tripped, a strange thing for him, but he had yet to tell Hayashi anything of the mission he just returned from, which he was grateful for the fact that he hadn't inquired about it. But keeping a secret like this, especially when their clan's Kekkei Genkai was no longer within the clan, was weighing heavy on him. But not as much as what would most likely happen to the boy if anyone from his clan, the elders especially, found out. Niji sighed and dropped out of his stance. No, it's nothing, Aji-sama, I'm merely still fatigued from my mission earlier this week. Hayashi nodded, understandable, seeing as you were requested to accompany the Hokage, I would expect whatever happened is quite impressive. He noticed Niji flinch, even as slight as it was, and felt a small flux in his chakra. Niji, is there something you wish to tell me? My mission was classified as S rank, and the details are also as such, Niji immediately said, I'm afraid I can't tell you anything, sir. Hayashi regarded the boy, then smiled, I will not ask. If the mission affected the clan in any way, I'm sure you would have told me at once, secret or not. Niji nodded, and the facts of the mission didn't affect the clan, not really. But when Ranmaru returned to the village, Hayashi-sama, Ko-Hyuga said as he came onto the ground, the Hokage has requested Niji-kun for a special mission outside the village. He is needed at the mansion at once for a briefing. Hayashi nodded to the man, then looked at his nephew, you'd better get going. There's no telling what it is this time. Yes, sir, Niji gave him a bow, and hurried out of the compound. Hayashi gave a slight smile, he's getting better. It won't be long until he surpasses me. Perhaps he'd be able to win his freedom from the elders. He looked up at the clouds, can you see him, Oniai-san, your son is turning into a fine young shinobi. X equals. I'm glad to hear their training is going so well at the moment, Tsunade said to Gamakichi while they waited for Niji, it's surprising that Ranmaru's already taken to the chakra exercises so well. Is Naruto doing well? Hee, from the look of him, Jiraiya's putting him through a shredder, the young toad said. I'm tellin' ya, him and Tayuya looked like they'd just gotten hit with a couple dozen fireballs from Pops. Tsunade almost laughed at that. I wish I could see that, she said, smiling. Naruto's already grown stronger because of this mission, and it's only been about 3 months. Yeah, Pop said by time it's all over, Jiraiya's supposed to bring Naruto to see Gramps at home. Gamakichi said, scratching his head, not so sure what that means, but it's gonna be great to have bro come over to my place finally. Tsunade raised her brow at this. A human entering the home of a summoned spirit meant one thing and one thing only. So, that's his plan, she thought, thinking of how long Jiraiya had taken to complete his training. But he said no more than 3 years, that's roughly how long it took for Jiraiya to complete the training under the toads. How is Naruto going to complete if in such a short amount of time? A knock at her door brought her out of her musings. Hokage-sama, it's Niji, I believe you requested to see me. Yes, come in, Niji-kun, she said, and the door was opened and the young Hyuga stepped in. I'm glad you came so quickly. Niji bowed. Of course, Kosan said it was of the utmost importance that I come at once. Tsunade grinned, not quite as important as that. I've just gotten a message from Jiraiya asking for your help in Ranmaru's training. She said, much to the boy's surprise, it's only natural seeing as the boy has the Byakugan, and you were requested. Apparently his training in expanding his chakra reserves is going well enough that Jiraiya thinks he could use Kaiten with a little work. That is impressive, Niji said, but are you sure that I'm suited for this? I mean that I know the basics, and all he would need to know, but teaching him. Jiraiya requested you and you only, Tsunade clarified. He wants to keep Ranmaru's eyes a secret as long as possible until their return to the village, and since you already know, you're the best we have, like it or not. I see, Niji nodded, that makes sense. Alright, when do I leave? Gamakichi laughed, you'll be comin' with me. What? The little toad hopped off the desk and onto Niji's shoulder, hope you don't get motion sick. Hold it. Tsunade yelled as Gamakichi prepared to leave, you need to know that this counts as an A rank, and as compensation for your time, however long it takes, I'll be promoting you to Chunin when you return. Really? Niji was surprised, why such a? Because, I think you'll more than earn it on this mission, Tsunade said with a small smile. Ranmaru's come so far in just under a month of training, and it's only been 3 months since they left the village. If you agree to train him, I'll consider it a service to the Sannin, worthy of a promotion to Chunin. Oi, can we get going already? Gamakichi asked. I promised Pops I'd be back in an hour. Niji looked at the toad perched on his shoulder nervously. What, exactly, are you doing there? Gamakichi smirked. Hang to your lunch, bub, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. The Hyuga and toad vanished in a puff of smoke, with said Hyuga looking horrified. == Ugh, I hate this training, Tayuya groaned that evening as they sat around the campfire. My legs feel like they've been shattered again. She stretched her legs out in front of her and fell backwards onto her bedroll. Naruto grumbled, plucking at the ruined hyuri he wore. Man, I knew I should have bought some different clothes. I was starting to like these. Jiraiya huffed at him from where he was stirring a pot of stew for their meal. It's your own damn fault for being too close to those clones when they exploded, and you put way too much power into them. He said, if there was anyone around for 40 miles, then they definitely heard that racket. Ranmaru, who was tending to a surprisingly passed-out Hyuga that had arrived earlier that day via summoning, thanks to Gamakichi, just smiled. But it's a good thing, right? Raiga-san always said that pain after training was a good pain. I hate toads. Niji muttered, causing Jiraiya to snicker, while both older teens laughed. 1 week later. That's good, Ranmaru-kun, but keep your guard up, Niji cautioned his student as Ranmaru dropped back into the basic Juken stance. Remember, keeping your guard up gives less opportunities for someone to break your balance. That is the main key to any Juken user. Guard and balance. Lose your balance, and you fall prey to whatever the enemy may have up their sleeve. Yes, sensei, the boy panted. Niji gave the boy a smile. Alright, now try again. Ranmaru nodded and activated his Byakugan, Hakusanjuni Sho. The boy darted forward, quick and nimble, homing in on the Tenketsu in Niji's body. 2. He struck hard, forcing Niji back. 4. Niji coughed as his points began to close. 8. 16. 32. Niji was thrown back, tumbling over onto his back, a groan escaping him. Sensei. Niji waved him off with a slightly proud smile. I'm alright, Ranmaru-kun, but that was perfect. You've closed off all of my Tenketsu effectively. If you'd used the advanced Juken, then you would have gravely injured me for sure. Ranmaru did not, however, look pleased. While training the boy, Niji found him to be a gentle soul, almost like his cousin, Hinata, but he was far more outspoken than she was. He didn't care for injuring someone he was close to, let alone a teacher. Naruto, who was watching from the sidelines while working on a seal, clapped his hands. That was pretty good, Ranmaru. I think if Niji defended himself, I'd say you'd land a hit on him. Niji scowled at him as he got to his feet. Don't blow it out of proportion. That was nothing compared to Aji-sama's strikes. He told the blonde prankster, by the way, would you lend me your clones? I want to show Ranmaru the third stage palm technique. Naruto nodded. Sure, how many do you need? 128, please, Niji said politely, and make sure they have equal chakra, if you don't mind. Coming right up, he grinned and made the necessary hand seals, Taiju Kage Bushin no Jutsu. This was the scene that Jiraiya and Tayuya marched in on from their foraging trip, the sight of Niji surrounded by Naruto's clones, and the stoic Hyuga dropping into his Juken stance. What the? Stand clear, Ranmaru-kun, he told the boy, who scurried away from the impending brawl. Now, Hak Hyaku Nijuhachi show. The clones rushed him, and Niji was a blur of motion, barely visible to Tayuya's eyes as he struck the clones blow for blow, not one hit landing on him as he whipped around in the most advanced stage of the Juken. Ranmaru was stunned, he couldn't even follow his sensei as he moved. Ranmaru knew that he was far below Niji's level, but to see this. The last of Naruto's clone was destroyed, and the real one was shaking from the phantom pain that the clones had felt. Kami be damned, Niji. Naruto roared at his friend, that nearly killed me. There is no possible way that you can die from the backlash of shadow clones, Naruto, Niji said smugly, but consider it even compensation for that sore jaw you gave me a few months ago. Weakness of the Hyuga clan, Naruto said sarcastically, the dreaded, glass jaw. Laugh it up, Niji said, I'm still going to be a Jonin before you, he grinned, unable to resist the jab. I became a Chunin before you did, Genius-sama, Naruto shot back while sticking out his tongue, which succeeded in shutting the Hyuga up for a time. Jiraiya couldn't help but laugh. Alright you two, save it for the honeymoon, it's time for. Jiraiya tensed, and ducked down to throw a kunai at a tall tree just above where Ranmaru had fled. A curse sounded from above him, and a platinum-haired shinobi leapt from the trees, throwing some sort of ball in Jiraiya's direction. The Sannin destroyed it with another kunai, but the result was not what he'd expected. Instead of a smoke bomb, a sickly purple mist exploded from the ball, and washed over him. Jiraiya barely had time to shove Tayuya out of the way before the poison got her as well. Naruto and Niji were in motion before the strange shinobi landed, both shooting toward him to attack. Ranmaru made to run toward Tayuya, but was stopped by someone grabbing the back of his robes and hauling him off the ground. Wah! Tayuya Wunchin. Ranmaru! Tayuya roared, running in to help. But the person holding him held a kunai to his throat, stopping him. What the fuck do you guys want? Give Ranmaru back. Oh, I think not, the shinobi, a woman, said. The Byakugan's finally in our hands, so there's no way we're letting it slip away again. Not after that failed attempt on the Hyuga clan's heir. Niji froze in place, looking at his opponents. You're from Kumo. Indeed, the man in front of him said, a thin smile on his face. You know, you resemble that fellow they sent to us, a spitting image, in fact. Niji ground his teeth in anger. Oh my, what a coincidence. Looks like we have the man's progeny. He laughed. You know I was the one that did the autopsy on him? I was so surprised that he had the seal on his head that I smashed his face in. Niji bolted forward, ready to kill the man. But Naruto held him back. Naruto growled, stepping forward with his swords appearing in his hands, making the man's squinting eyes widen at the sight of the thunder swords. I don't care what you guys want. You tell your friend to let Ranmaru go right now. Or what? The woman asked as she backed into the forest. Jin, I'll leave the brats to you. I'll take the boy back to Kumo. Jin smiled again. Sounds like a plan. With the poison running through the old man's veins, he won't be a problem for at least a day. He said as Jiraiya struggled to stand. Don't worry, it won't kill you. It's something we use to screw up the chakra systems of our Jinchuriki if they go wild on us. It makes them weak, and unable to use chakra for a time. The effect on normal people, more so. Niji glanced at Naruto, catching his attention and gesturing with his head toward the woman. The blonde nodded and took a step back. Jin saw it. Run, Naoko. Onodoro. Tayuya screamed, sending her demonic lanterns toward the tree line to cut off her escape, but the woman was far too fast for her, and got ahead of the flames. Shit, Naruto. Get back here. Naruto roared, barreling after her. Onaikan. Ranmaru yelled. For a moment, Naruto thought he was calling for help. But as the woman turned to the boy with a cruel grin on her face, Katsu. As Naruto passed into the trees, he failed to notice the ring of paper bombs stuck to the trees. Caught completely off guard, Naruto was thrown toward the lake, landing with a resounding splash. Naruto! Tayuya ran after him and dove into the water. You'll pay for that. Neji growled, rushing Jin, and ducking under the strike of his Tonto. Too slow. Neji said, and Jin saw the gleam in the boy's eyes. I'll make sure the Byakugan is the last thing you see. Hack Hyaku Nijuhachi Sho. Jin was bombarded with the technique from earlier. Damn it. We underestimated this brat. They'd planned for everything, even the Hyuga, but he hadn't expected him to be faster than what they'd seen, especially for a genin. Jin fell to the ground, blood rising in his mouth, dead. Jiraiya-sama, are you alright? Neji made to run to him but the old Sannin waved him off. I'm fine. He roared, go get Ranmaru. Neji nodded and raced off into the trees, his eyes blazing. I'm coming for you Ranmaru, just hold on. == Naruto found himself in a very familiar place. Water dripped all around him in the dark room as the Kyuubi's breathing woke him. Well, it seems you're in a bit of a bind, runt. Naruto groaned and got to his feet. It's nothing I can't handle. Why the hell did you call me in here? I've got things to do. He, do you really think you can win on your own? The Kyuubi laughed. That was no ordinary shinobi. She was gifted with something more than just brains. I can sense it. She's way ahead of us. Naruto began to panic. Let me out of here, and let me get going. Ranmaru's in trouble, and Pervy Sage can't do anything right now. Oh, I will, but I thought I might offer my help first, the Kyuubi said, lowering his head to the boy's level. If I had to guess, then I'd say that female is using swift release to get ahead of you. Only you could catch up with her, and that's only using my power. You're offering me your chakra? Naruto asked, for free? No, I do want something in return, the fox said. Change my prison into something more pleasant when you have the time, but for now, take my power and go. The red female is trying to swim you back to shore, now, so you should wake up soon. But take care, runt. If that woman reaches lightning territory, you may run into one of my siblings. Before Naruto could ask what that meant, he was flooded with the burning power of the Biju's chakra. Chapter 14. I growled under his breath at the news he'd just been given, and we're sure that the boy is right one? He asked. From what we've heard about him from our spies following Raiga, the boy had a different Jujutsu. Mabui nodded, flipping through the files on her clipboard. It is indeed the same boy, Reikage-sama, but it would seem the surviving spy reported that he saw the boy's eyes change into something else, and from the glow, he surmised it to be the Byakugan, and possibly a more advanced version. He wasn't sure as Tsunade of the Sannin was present, and he didn't want to risk being captured. I nodded, a smart move, and I'm sure Jin and Naoko's party is more than up to the task. Did you say that he was with one of the Sannin? Again Mabui flipped through her pages. Yes, it appears as though he's traveling under the protection of Jiraiya, the Gamma Sannin, along with 2 other apprentices in tow, one being a young Chunin resembling the Yondaime Hokage. Ice interest was piqued at his. That's interesting. I suppose it's possible that he may have had a son, given how close he was to the Red Death, right? That does it? I bellowed, causing the poor secretary to cover her ears. Almost immediately, there was a loud commotion outside as the hulking figure of the Reikage sworn brother entered through the window. Yo, bro, your call shook the walls, ain't no need to be bustin', my B dash. Elbow. B was dropped by a reverse elbow strike from his brother. How many times have I told you to knock of the rapping? Twitching, B groaned, ain't no test, bro's blows are the best, ow. Mabui hid her smirk behind her board as the pair's antic threatened to make her laugh. Reikage-sama, why summon B-sama? Because I want him to go back up Naoko's team, I said as B got to his feet. If this Gaki's got an advanced Byakugan, then there's no way I'm letting it slip through our fingers again. Not even if the legendary Toad Sage gets in the way. B groaned, aw man, that old plan? Sheesh, dude, all this thieving's rude. Speak normally, B, I said. I didn't understand a word of that. I'm saying that I don't like this, B said, scratching the back of his head. If that kid's as strong as you think he is, then Konoha ain't gonna sit by and let the kid fly. I huffed. They wouldn't dare risk a war with us, not with the invasion leaving their village weak as it is. Mabui sighed. He may have a point, Reikage-sama. Konoha is not as weak as you may think it is. For once, I don't care, I said. If they deem the boy worthy enough to fight for, then so be it. Let them come. By the time they get here, maybe some of the willing women will be pregnant. B looked at his brother. Dude, that's sick. The kid's just what, 5? 9, Mabui said. He's older than we thought. Good, I said. Now, B, I know you don't like this, but this is an order. You don't have to harm the boy, just keep Jiraiya off Naoko's tail long enough for her to get here. They're a good 24 hours away if the message is anything to go on. Naoko-chan be quick as lightning. With her swift release, we won't have to worry in the least. Be that as it may, I'd rather you go and protect her as well. We don't have many swift users, and losing her would be a big blow for us. I said, smiling as he was about to dangle the proverbial carrot, and you might want to go anyway. Jin's message stated that one of Jiraiya's apprentices is in possession of the Kiba that Raiga kept before he died. Now B's interest was piqued. Bro, you tellin' me that some lil babes got the lighting blades? I slapped his brother on the shoulder. Go get him, B. You can count on me, we. =X=. Niji ran as fast as he could to try and keep up with the kunoichi carrying his apprentice. But the kunoichi herself was far ahead of him, and gaining ground as she ran. Never in his life had he seen someone as fast as this woman. Coward! Niji shouted in an attempt to slow her. Will Kumo risk war with Konoha just for the Byakugan once again? The kunoichi looked back at the young Hyuga. What war? From what our sources say, this boy isn't even part of Konoha. She grinned from far ahead of him while Ranmaru struggled. He's fair game to anyone that wants him. Niji cursed his speed, pushing as much chakra into his legs to propel himself forward. Suddenly though, he felt a blast of monstrous chakra washing over him, making him stagger. The Kumo kunoichi wasn't spared as the malicious chakra washed over her as well, pausing her flight as she turned back toward the source. Fear washed over her and her charge as Ranmaru activated his Byakugan on instinct to seek out the chakra's source himself. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The woman sneered. One of those rats was a Jinchuriki. What's a Jinchuriki? Ranmaru asked. Naoko looked down at the boy who had stopped struggling to search for the irate source. Gaki, if Kumo's Jinchuriki are anything to go on, then you don't want to know. She said as she turned to flee, forming the boar sign. Jin-tun, Musho. Niji, momentarily forgetting the chakra burst, cursed again as Naoko's form blurred. Damn it. Without another thought, he was in motion. =X=. Tayuya had hauled Naruto back onto the bank without a problem. But the moment she tried to revive him, his eyes shot open, red as blood, and slit like a cat's as a massive burst of chakra had come from him. Jiraiya, still down from the poison, looked up in shock as Naruto shot to his feet. Naruto, don't do it. What the? Jiraiya needn't have worry. Naruto resummoned his blades, and shot off at blinding speeds in the direction Niji had chased the Kumo kunoichi. Wait! The old sage called after him, but Naruto was already long gone. Gamidamit all. He growled and struggled to his feet. Tayuya, we need to go after them. If they're after Ranmaru's eyes, then they'll have a larger force waiting to intercept them. He received no answer from her. He turned and saw that the girl was still rooted to the spot she had been when she pulled Naruto out of the water. She was staring off in the direction that her friend had gone. To Tayuya, Naruto looked at her for a fraction of a moment without the blue eyes she'd come to know and trust, but with red eyes slit like a cat's. His face, normally bright and smiling, was scowling in a feral snarl as he'd taken off after them. Gigi, what the fuck just happened? She stammered out, turning slowly to their sensei. That couldn't have been Naruto, right? He's never looked at me like that. Jiraiya sighed and rummaged through his pockets before producing a small bottle. I think you should sit down, Tayuya-chan, I've got some explaining to do. Shaking out of her daze, Tayuya moved over to him while he drank down the contents of the bottle in hand. Damn, Tsunade sure knows how to make this stuff taste nasty. He grimaced. All right, Tayuya-chan, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer truthfully. What do you know of those that are called Jinchuriki? Teiwei blinked for a moment. That's what people call others that have a biju inside them, right? Jiraiya nodded. But what the hell does that, oh, Kami, shitheads a? Jinchuriki, Jiraiya finished. Does that change anything between you two? =X=. I thought I told you to hold still. Naoko snapped to the wriggling child. While well out of range of the young Hyuga, the Kumo kunoichi was not keen to let that Jinchuriki get too close. Ranmaru was doing his damnedest to get free of the woman's arms. I'm not going anywhere with you. Ranmaru shouted, activating his Byakugan, and molding it into the Tensigen. Naoko was stunned, but the boy never let her say another word. Kaiten. Rotating his body rapidly, Ranmaru ripped himself from her arms, much to the shock of the Jin-tun user. While using the Tensigen, Ranmaru and Niji had discovered a new chakra point. Unlike the others, this one was unique in the fact that it completely shut down the chakra system for hours on end, leaving the opponent weak and virtually helpless against an experienced opponent. And it was located in the pit of the stomach, where the chakra well was located. Using a chakra-infused palm against the woman, taking her by surprise. Ranmaru struck the point awkwardly, causing more damage than was needed, but it served the purpose. Naoko fell. Ranmaru and the Kumo Kunoichi went tumbling from the trees where Ranmaru did his best to right himself and take off toward his friends once more, but Naoko had enough strength left to give the boy a violent kick and send him careening into the forest, crashing against the ground before she herself fell. Ranmaru, young as he was fortunate not to witness the woman's fate as she fell, unable to right herself in time before she crashed, her neck at an awkward angle. The young Byakugan user, however, had the wind knocked out of him and staggered to his feet, holding his side as a blinding pain shot through him. My ribs. The boy's eyes changed back to their usual gray hues as he took in his surroundings. Naoko's body lay broken a few yards away, making him shiver and thankful that he had managed to come out of it slightly unscathed. They were far from camp, thanks to the swift user, and far from help. Ranmaru activated his Byakugan once more and scanned the area, hoping to find someone nearby. He found what he was looking for, unfortunately. There were no Jitan users among them, but there were plenty of other reasons to worry. More to the point, none of them were his friends. Before Ranmaru could hide himself, 20 or so Kumo shinobi landed in front of him. "That's the kid," one of the men said, "those eyes are a dead giveaway." Another one laughed. "No joke, look what he did to Naoko," he said, giving the corpse a small nudge with his foot, dead as a doornail. "Well, if he's got the Byakugan, then he's gonna be a little dangerous," a Kunoichi said from the safety of the trees. "She probably let her guard down because he's just a little kid." Ranmaru dropped into his Juken stance. "I'm stronger than I look." The boy bluffed, hoping to throw them off. "I can promise that I won't go with you easily." His voice was deceptively calm, even though his heart was beating like a rabbit's. Some of the shinobi seemed to get nervous, but the majority just laughed, welcoming the challenge. "Bring it, Gaki," one of the larger men said, grinning as he sauntered forward, smashing his fists together, and sparks flying from the knuckles. "Isama's promised a huge reward for those eyes of yours, so whether we bring you back as breeding stock, or just as an unsealed corpse, it won't matter." The veins around Ranmaru's eye tightened. "I don't have any choice, do I?" He wondered before sighing to himself, and allowing his eyes to morph into the second state once again. "Then I might as well fight you with all that I have to offer," Ranmaru said, his resolve covering the quake in his voice. "Come on, then, because you're facing Ranmaru Kurasuke of the Tenseigan." Before his attackers could get over the shock of seeing the new Dujutsu's manifest, Ranmaru was on the move. Though nowhere near as fast as Niji when it came to combat, Ranmaru had learned well, and pushed his chakra into his legs for the added boost in speed as he attacked the nearest shinobi. "Hack Sanjuni!" The boy roared out, striking the needed chakra points before turning to the next target. Unfortunately, the remaining 19 had gotten over their shock. They all launched themselves at the boy, only giving him a small amount of time to get himself in gear before he was overwhelmed. Kaiten. Rotating as fast as he was able, Ranmaru blocked and parried each blow, sending them back to the ground. As he slowed, he felt the massive drain on his chakra. The jutsu, combined with the Tenseigan, caused 3 down, 17 to go. "Gaki's got some skill," one of the remaining shinobi said, "and those eyes, Isama's gonna have kittens when he sees those." A Kunoichi off to his left licked her lips. "We'd best take him back alive, who knows how strong a second-generation Dujutsu from this one would be." Ranmaru grit his teeth. "I'm no one's cattle." He growled and sped toward the offending Kunoichi, aiming for the newly discovered chakra point. She grinned and moved to slash at him with her kunai. Ranmaru ducked under it, spun, and slammed a deadly two-palmed strike into her stomach. Greh. A torrent of blood erupted from her mouth as she fell, splashing a stunned Ranmaru. She looked at him with blank eyes. You little demon." Something broke loose then, a fear he didn't yet know he had. He remembered seeing same splash from Tayuya as she was hit by Raiga's attack, and then again as Naruto impaled Raiga. And now it was on him. He had caused it to appear. He had just killed. He knew it wasn't the first time he killed, but the rational part of his mind had been put on the proverbial back burner as the red liquid splashed onto him. "Well, looky there," the kids shaking, one of them laughed. "He's scared." Ranmaru looked up at them, still dazed, and felt a familiar chakra signature approaching. One of the shinobi alighting in a tree, not paying attention to anything other than the boy in front of them, felt a cold chill run down his spine. "If he is scared, then so should you be," said a cold, even voice from behind him. He turned, staring into blazing white eyes. "Hack Hazanjiki." The powerful vacuum strike of the gentle fist hit him square in the back, sending him flying across the forest and into another tree, splintering the bark and wood beneath. Niji dropped to the ground in his fighting stance, glaring around him. "Now, your opponent is me." Equals X equals. Runt, you need to pick it up if you want to catch up to them, Kyuubi snarled as Naruto sped through the forest at speeds yet unknown to those without Jiten. At this rate, they'll reach Cumin before we get a chance to bite them. Don't you think I know that, furball? Naruto mentally snapped, I'm going as fast as I can, even with your chakra. A minor thing, just don't let up, even if you feel pain in a few moments, the fox said, much to Naruto's displeasure. What pain? He asked aloud. I'm opening up all of you chakra systems. Kyuubi explained, while I cannot use all of the elements, I can use Futon and Katon, which I can effectively combine at will. You will do this if we come up against one of my brethren. Before Naruto could ask what that meant, a searing pain raced through his body, almost as if his very veins were being set on fire. What the hell? Naruto roared, nearly losing his footing. Calm yourself, the fox chided, it'll only last a few moments while my chakra heals the stretched Tenketsu. Besides, you should feel grateful, having 2 chakra natures at your age, let alone 3 is very rare. He said, almost gloating, with all of your chakra natures awakened, you'll be much stronger than your average jonin when you've learned to use the elements. Naruto landed lightly on a branch to catch his breath while the pain ebbed away. Yeah, he growled sarcastically, and just so grateful. As he rested, the Kiba were still sparking with the chakra he'd fed into them, small bursts of red lightning shooting out. Hey, a voice said from above, Gaki, come to play? Naruto looked up sharply, seeing a dark-skinned man in shades grinning down at him, the sheaths of multiple blades on his hips and back. Best make way, 'cause them blade hold no sway in any way over me, Kurabi, see. The blonde just stared at the man, a dumbfounded expression on his face. The Kyuubi was no better. Did you understand any of that? Not a word. I don't suppose you'd just let me by, any? Naruto asked. Kurabi sighed, man, dat ain't part of the plan, he rapped, I told me to keep you away from the Gaki, see? But lemme lay this on ya, you gimme them fine Kiba, and I'll let ya go like spring feve? That did it. No way in hell was Naruto giving up his swords when he'd worked so hard on his kenjutsu. The blonde dropped into a horse stance, hold either blade out at arm's length, Yuzu Haiden no Jutsu, Motsu no Orochi. Kurabi's brow raised at the name of the attack as Naruto's arms became 6? Hell no. The eccentric shinobi whipped all of his swords out of their sheaths, each one in an impossible place, his mouth, the back of his neck, elbows, giving him the look of a porcupine. I invented this shit, ain't nobody gonna steal it. Naruto leapt up at him, thrusting his left arms forward. The Hachibi Jinchuriki grinned as he blocked all of the attacks at once. Naruto's second barrage of strikes was aimed at the vulnerable spots created when B blocked him, only to be blocked yet again. The blonde retreated to a branch not far away as B whipped around to face him, surprised? He asked, losing the rap, sorry, Blondie, but you ain't the only one I've seen use that jutsu. He grinned, I know how it works. It's a borderline genjutsu, moving your arms so fast it makes you look like you got 6, he flipped, sheathing all but 2 of his swords. Snake Fang Strike is an Uzumaki style, so I'm guessin' you be an Uzumaki, NE? Naruto growled, yeah, so what? B smirked, so, this is gonna be good. Damn it. I recognize that fool. Kyuubi roared, that's the Hachibi Jinchuriki. Runt, channel all of my chakra into those blades, and use that Raitun Jutsu. Not sure what else to do, Naruto did as he was instructed, and the Kiba glowed a dangerous red. B was again surprised, that chakra, man, just what I need. Soryoha. Naruto's cry rang out, but unlike the last few times he'd used the attack, with the Kyuubi's help, the Soryoha did not come out as a bolt of lightning. Instead, the head of a massive dragon roared out, followed by the snake-like body as it flew toward B. He leapt out of the line of fire as the dragon roared by, shattering the trees around it, only for it to turn around and give chase to the Kumo Jinchuriki. B grinned, man, that is some jutsu you got there, Lil Gaki, it's making me go wacky. He landed and thrust his swords out, one into the air, and one aimed directly at the oncoming dragon, but lightning's my specialty. As he said that, the dragon was drawn to the metal sword like a lightning rod, shooting through the man's body and up through the other sword, shooting into the sky. Naruto grimaced at the red bolt shot high, gathering storm clouds around it. Damn it. Thunder rumbled as B gazed at him with a pleased smile. Now, Ms. A9, it's show time. Chapter 15. Hurry the hell up. Tayuya snapped over her shoulder, we're way behind them. Behind her, Jiraiya was struggling to keep up for 2 reasons. He was still recovering from the toxins, and Tayuya was running far faster than he'd ever seen her run before. A small wonder, considering her reaction. Flashback. A Jinchuriki, Jiraiya said, does that change anything between you two? Tayuya looked at her sensei in shock. Change? Jiraiya nodded. In many of the villages, those that are called Jinchuriki are often feared and hated. Being from IWA, you would know this seeing as your old home's two Jinchuriki. Tayuya shook her head. No, I never knew either of them. She said, I never even knew their names. And my village was, well, it was on the border. Jiraiya nodded again, staggering to his feet, and Tayuya moved to help him. Well, that explains a lot. Either way, you do know how they're treated. Tayuya nodded as she helped Jiraiya to his feet, nearly buckling under the weight, making her wonder why her legs felt so weak. Naruto's led a lonely life for the longest time, and the fact that he hasn't told you about it until now. Tayuya stepped away from him, looking at him with what he thought might be anger. You think I'd hate him for that? She snapped at him angrily. As long as I was with that snake, I know enough about Jinchuriki to fucking know that they don't choose to be containers. Jiraiya grinned at the red head, and reached out, much to her annoyance, and patted her on the head like he would a child. Finally, she looked up at him as he spoke, someone I can trust with him. Eh? Tayuya blinked at him in confusion. Jiraiya shook his head. Nothing. He removed his hand. Let's get going. I doubt Kumo's going to pull any punches after their first attempt at the Byakugan. Flashback and equals. Even though she was still only scratching the surface, Jiraiya knew that something about the girl in front of him was blossoming, and it had everything to do with his blonde apprentice. Jiraiya was brought out of his musings by what looked like a red blast of Raiton shooting into the sky, forming storm clouds above. Damn, that had to be Naruto. He growled, Tayuya, get going. I'm slowing you down. Right. Tayuya shot away, leaving him on his own. Kagebushin no Yatsu. A puff of smoke alerted him to the creation of his clone. You know what to do, now go. Got it, the clone said and hurtled off in another direction. Good, while he searches for Ranma and Neji, maybe I can get to Naruto before things get out of hand. He thought, just before a loud rumble shook the air around him, or not, me and my big mouth. He thought as the trees swayed under him, I haven't felt as much demonic chakra since the war. And it feels eerily familiar. Jiraiya groaned as the poison still in his system kept slowing him down. I'm gonna have to ask for a stronger dose the next time I see Tsunade. Meanwhile, Tayuya was growing more worried by the second as the storm clouds gathered ahead of her. Please be okay, please be okay, please be okay. The girl repeated over and over again, I don't care if you've got some monster inside you, you're still my friend. She was closing in, fast, and the storm was getting worse as she neared, lightning shooting off in all directions. Not natural lightning, it was to tame. This had to be Naruto's Kiba techniques, but there was another chakra adding fuel to the fire. Just then, as she felt Naruto's presence, a tremendous roar ripped through the forest. It was a mixture of the wild cry of a human in battle, and that of a challenging beast. It was then that a blast of cold, ominous chakra washed over her, chilling her to her bones. That's gotta be the fox, she thought as she collected herself. Naruto's using its chakra, right? She burst through the trees, and saw her friend, being scorched alive. Moments earlier with Naruto and B equals. Naruto grunted as he picked himself up from the forest floor, glaring up at the Hachibi Jinchuriki. Damn it, are you even taking me seriously? He growled out as the man leaned against a tree trunk, seemingly bored. If you're strong enough to knock me around like this, then why haven't you killed me, or captured me, yet? B gave a loud yawn, infuriating the blonde further. Don't sweat it, 'cause you can't cut it, he said. My job's just to keep you off Naoko's fine lil tail until she gets the Gaki back without fail, fool ya fool. So he really is toying with me. Naruto growled, hearing another growl in response. We haven't got time to fool around with this guy, but he's way too strong for me to take on without help. What do you think I've been doing while you've been playing? QB growled at his container. Haven't you noticed the pain from my tinkering is gone? Haven't had time to think about it. The fox growled angrily. Focus, then. If you want to get this guy off your tail, then you're gonna have to make him leave you alone. He roared, show some of our power, and I almost bet that the Hachibi will want to clear out before his container is injured. It's obvious the two are working together in more ways than you and I at the moment, so if you want to get out of here, then it's time to put the claws to him. Naruto nodded, before sealing the Kiba away in his hands, making B glance at him curiously. Alright, Fuzzy, what do I do? First off, don't call me Fuzzy, my fur is soft and luscious. The fox growled. Second, relax your body. Huh? Naruto said aloud. Relax body. Naruto groaned as the roar deafened him. Okay. Geez, I think I lost the hearing in my right ear. Naruto growled as he allowed his body to slacken. Now what? Now, I use my Shikuten through you. Suddenly, Naruto's body began heating up to unbearable levels. Steam arose from his skin as a heat haze appeared around him. B lowered his glasses. Man, what's that? Some kinda new attack? I don't think I want to find out, the Hachibi answered. Seeing as that is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, then I wouldn't bank on Kurama not going all out against me. Especially since he probably hasn't forgiven me for, well, embarrassing him in front of Matatabi once. Che, you made old Furball look like a screwball? I'd have loved to see that. No, you really wouldn't, the Eight-Tails said, sweat dropping. When he lost his temper over it, he managed to create Heron Bay in the land of hot springs. Seriously? Would I joke about something like that? Ah! Naruto roared, white-hot flames erupting from his body. B's shades nearly fell off his nose. Oh, that ain't good, he said, just as a girl popped out of the forest and came to a halt upon seeing the blonde state. Naruto. Naruto whipped around to face her. Tayuya? What the hell? That's what the fuck I should say. Tayuya snapped at him. What's going on? She yelled, pointing at the flames still licking his frame. What's with all the fire, and how the hell are you okay? Naruto blinked, looking at himself, the feeling pain gone, and scratched the back of his head. It's a little hard to explain. As B watched the pair bicker, he sighed. You know, I'm startin' to feel low. Being forgotten's a blow to my ego, yo. Naruto turned back to him. Look, Tayuya, I'll explain things later, I promise, but right now, I need to get rid of this guy. Tayuya reached into her pouch, pulling out her near-forgotten flute. Not without me, you're not. We're a team, remember? Naruto glared at her, as the higher-ranking shinobi. You can kiss my ass with that shit? Tayuya snapped, the day I take orders from you is the day I dash. Yo! B yelled, tired of being left out. Enough with the lover's spat. It's time to attack. Naruto growled and dropped into his stance. Alright, let's see what I can do with this, he said, the white flames forming around his fists. Meanwhile equals. Neji and Ranmaru were in rough shape, nor were things seeming to start looking up. Neji's primary element was unluckily enough Doton, and the Kumo shinobi still standing were largely Raiton-based. Ranmaru, not for lack of trying, was far more exhausted than what was safe for his age. Neji could just barely make out the slightest glimmer of chakra still flickering with life in his system. The area surrounding them was decimated by the battle that had unfolded, largely due to the use of Neji's Kaiten, making the remaining 10 shinobi wary of him. It was blind luck that none of them had noticed his blind spot yet. He had narrowly missed being hit from behind there had it not been for Ranmaru's help. But now both of them were nearing their limits. Ranmaru was most likely well past his own judging by the way he was leaning. Kumo was known for its shinobi having large chakra reserves, and unfortunately it appeared that those rumors were true. Neji could easily see that at least half the remaining forces still had little more than half of their chakra left. Neji-sensei? Ranmaru's small voice reached him, starting him out of his thoughts. We're not getting out of this, are we? Neji looked down at the boy somberly. I will do everything within my power to see that you escape, the young Hyuga said, smiling before whispering. When I tell you, make a run for it. Understand? Ranmaru's eyes teared up, but he nodded. Hi. Neji scanned the area, looking for any sign of weakness in the circle formed around them to make room for Ranmaru's escape. His target would be the one with the weakest chakra signature, there. Stay right behind me, Neji told the boy, and rushed toward his intended target. They're making break for it. Someone yelled, stop them. But it was too late for that. Neji had already amassed the amount of chakra needed for his attack. Hakusho. He thrust out his palm only a few meters from the shinobi, sending out a blast of chakra so strong that it left a gauging trail in the earth beneath the jutsu. The stunned Kumo Nin was thrown off his feet and slammed several meters away into a tree, splintering the wood as his body made contact. Run, Ranmaru. A moment's hesitation, and Ranmaru rushed past his teacher, hurtling into the forest as Neji squared up behind him. A quick glance over his shoulder halted him. Neji. Go! Neji yelled as the Kumo shinobi rushed him. I'll catch up later, just run. Liar, Neji thought to himself as he dodged kunai and shuriken. As he watched Ranmaru's innocent face give him a small smile before turning to run, he knew that there was little to no chance of him getting away unscathed. He felt the same thrill he'd gotten when facing down the archer, Kidamaru, when they had been sent to bring back Sasuke. Except this time he felt that he might not be so lucky. But that did not mean he would go down without a fight. As the shinobi all tried to get past him, a small smile graced his lips, reminiscent of Naruto's when he pulled a prank on someone. I've already told you, he said, forcing his secondary chakra nature into his system, your opponent is me. He spun around. Katon, Kaiten. Ranmaru didn't look back, even though he wanted to, badly, but his body just wouldn't stop running. As moved further and further away, he felt a massive spike in chakra that only belonged to Neji. Looking back over his shoulder for even second, Ranmaru saw the light of a blazing fire igniting the forest behind him in a dome that he knew to be a Katon. Gritting his teeth, Ranmaru turned and resolved himself to finding the others and bringing help. In doing so, he failed to see the two remaining figures leaping from the flames in pursuit. "Drive him toward the others," said the Kumo shinobi. "If he thinks he can get away, then we've got him." == Jiraiya's shadow clone landed in the clearing mere minutes after the battle had taken place, finding the area burned and charred in a perfect circle. At its epicenter, lay the prone figure of Niji Hyuga, his Haitai-8 removed, revealing his curse mark for all to see. "So, that's why they didn't take him," the clone muttered in disgust, kneeling down to check his vitals. There was a faint pulse in his neck, which he was thankful for. "All right, time to wake up, Niji," he said, lightly slapping the boy's face to rouse him. Niji groaned and his eyes fluttered open, looking up at him weakly. The clone grinned. "Welcome back, Gaki. Did you get the other two?" Niji demanded. Jiraiya's clone felt a pit of dread forming in his stomach. "Other two?" He looked around at the downed shinobi. "What was left of them? I see 8 here. Niji, are you telling me you missed a few?" Niji nodded. "2 hung back as I used my new Katon against the others. I saw them moving around me as I collapsed. They checked to see if I was a branch member." He spat venomously, regaining some of his strength. "Apparently I'm not good enough for them." Jiraiya's clone created another and dispelled it just as quickly, letting the information travel back to the original. "I just let the others and my original know about it. If they aren't already on their tails, then they will be soon. For now, we need to treat your wounds." == That being said, the original Jiraiya was still having trouble with his speed thanks to the poison, though he was no slouch when push came to shove. He was still faster than the average Jonin. Of course he was brought to a halt when he received the info from his clone. "Not good," he muttered. "I need to catch up to Naruto and Tayuya before they catch Ranmaru." Of course, he didn't know just how close he was to them when he burst out of the tree tops. What he found was close to an all-out war. Tayuya's flute was gripped tightly in her hands as dipped and ducked around large tentacles whipping around the area, her 3 demons sitting down below on the ground, waiting for her to play. Naruto was also on the move, though he was not running from anything. He was making a beeline for the owner of those tentacles, and Jiraiya could only guess that this had to be Karabi, the Hachi no Jinchuriki, given the octopus arms. "Bananguasudo!" The blonde roared, driving a flame-engulfed fist into the nearest tentacle, igniting it immediately. He then whipped his body around so he could roll over the arm, and make a direct attack to the shinobi. Naruto brought his hands up and started running through a series of hand signs he recognized as the tiger, hare, ox, and dragon seals, all the signs for a powerful katan. Shikuten, Kitsunabi. Watching in amazement as the blonde's chest ballooned out to impossible proportions, Naruto then let loose a stream of blue/white flames directly at B. Yao! The shinobi yelped and Kawarami'd out of way, using one of his octopus arms to do so. "You crazy fox, ain't no way you gonna be this ox. We'll see about that." Tayuya yelled from below, drawing attention away from the blonde as she raised her flute to her lips, and began to play. Her demons perked up and jerked to life as she played her melody, and all 3 sightless face turned toward the fleeing Jinchuriki. "Now, that's not fair," B said, dropping his rap. "It's 5-on-1 here." 6. Jiraiya yelled as he leapt into the fray, surprising Tayuya enough to miss a note that caused the lead demon to falter as he pursued B. B, on the other hand, was too focused on the demons to pay any attention to the older shinobi as he jumped in, yet his aim was unerring as the Hachibi Jinchuriki swung his arm around, clocking the weakened Jiraiya in the throat. Lariat. Jiraiya was sent careening into the bark of a tree, leaving him to dig himself out slowly as Naruto got back into the fight. "Hey, no one smacks my sensei around but me," he roared, bringing his hands into the clone seal, Taiju Kage Bushin no Justu. B grinned as one became 1,000. "Trying to outnumber me ain't gonna work," he said, drawing all of his swords once more. "They don't call me the master of 8 outta hate." Tayuya, still down on the ground, paled. "He's not doing what I think he is he?" She asked of no one in particular, but the maniacal grin on the blonde's face gave her all the answers she needed. "Ah, fuck." She flashed up the tree via Shushin, and helped Jiraiya out of the tree. "We gotta get out of here before those go off. No telling what the fuck'll happen if he uses them all at once." Jiraiya groaned. "I'm with you, but we need to head for Kumo, now. They're chasing Ranmaru right into a trap." "What?" Naruto had heard them. "Damn it, I gotta end this. Go!" He roared at his clones, and all of them rushed toward the unsuspecting B. Just as B was about to start swinging, each clone started glowing an ominous white. "Get out of the way!" The original yelled at his friends. "I'll right behind you." Tayuya didn't need to be told twice as she sped away with Jiraiya on her shoulders. Bushin Daibakuha. Tayuya was moving as fast as she could using the Shushin no Jutsu, already a good mile away from the fight when the explosion erupted. She stopped and watched as the growing smoke cloud drifted up. Damn that stupid, blonde, son of a. Easy, Jiraiya told her, taking his weight from her shoulders. We both know he won't die that easily, and neither will the other one, for that matter, so right now we need to catch up to Ranmaru before it's too late. Come on. Tayuya watched him go with a moment's hesitation, one last look back toward the explosion, and sent a small prayer to what kami there were that her blonde friend be safe before turning to leave the area. Meanwhile, Naruto hadn't gone unscathed from the explosion, though he was far better off than he would have thought possible. He was lying on his back on the forest floor at the edge of what was most likely the blast zone. Surprisingly, sitting not too far from him, was the Hachibi Jinchuriki himself, scribbling on a notepad. He saw the boy looking at him and grinned. That was some fight, Gaki. Totally got my blood pumpin', real snappy. He said, still scribbling. Well, looks like I done failed this one, big bro's gonna wail on me for sure. Huh? Naruto sat up, wincing as his body ached. What are you talking about? B shrugged his shoulders. Well, you see, I was supposed to make sure that Sannin stayed off the Lil Gaki's tail long enough for us to nab him, but since I got caught in a fight with the Kyuubi no Jinchuriki, he must have gotten past me. He smiled, letting his glasses slide down his nose in a sly grin. See, I can't disobey my Kage, but that don't mean I can't fail the mission. You were just too strong for me, Gaki. He raised his fist toward the boy. You and me, we gonna meet again soon, I think, and then we gonna settle this, you hear? Inside the seal, the Kyuubi raised his head. He's offering you his friendship, he said in disbelief. At this, Naruto grinned and raised his fist to bump against B's. Thank you. Again, B grinned. Yep, I was right, he said, confusing the blonde. You're yo daddy's boy all right. Naruto stiffened. You knew my dad? X equals. Ranmaru's tired legs were ready to give out at this point as he ran at full speed through the forest, ducking and dodging kunai and shuriken attached to wire aimed at his legs. The two shinobi that had survived Niji's attack just wouldn't let up. As soon as he thought he was gaining ground, one of them would appear in front of him to capture him, sending him sprawling and running again. That was when it hit him. They were driving him. As fast as they were, they could have had him at any time, yet they were wary of his abilities, having seen firsthand what he could do, untrained as he was. Reaching into his pouch, he retrieved a soldier pill and popped it into his mouth, allowing it to restore his chakra to some degree, enough that he could take down these two shinobi, or die trying. He skidded to a halt, whipping around, his Byakugan coming alive, and dropped into his Juken stance, ready to fight. You're not driving me anywhere, now. Then two men landed in front of him, far too relaxed for his liking, and started laughing. We don't need to, Gaki. The one in the lead said, pointing behind him. You don't know it, but the border of Kumo is just right there. Ranmaru cast a small glance behind him, and through the trees, thanks to his eyes, he could see a large stone gate. Kumo. That wasn't the worst of it, though. Waiting on the other side of those very trees was an extremely large force of shinobi, all with chakra levels far higher than his own, and one of them dwarfed even Jiraiya's. Growling at the hopelessness that threatened to break him, he turned back to the two men. I'm still not going down without taking you two with me. He launched himself at the two, chakra blazing at his palms, but the second one blurred into his line of sight and rammed his knee deep into his stomach, knocking the wind out of him. Naoko-chan was the best of our Jitan users, but she wasn't the only one. He informed him, then smiled cruelly. I'm going to enjoy watching some of our more forceful women having fun with you. Ranmaru growled and stuck his tongue out, intending to bite down, but was grabbed by the chin by the leader. Now, none of that. He laughed. We were paid to bring you in whole, and we wouldn't want to tarnish our record, now, would we? Yeah, but I don't think he'll be using his tongue much, his partner laughed. Then something caught all of their attention. A smell, faint, yet potent, gas. Suddenly, Jiraiya flashed down in front of them, grabbing Ranmaru around the waist. Now. He roared before jumping away. Onodoro. Tayuya's voice rang out, and the familiar demon lanterns shot out of the shadows, igniting the gas too fast even for the Jitan user. Jiraiya and Ranmaru landed in a tree a safe distance away where Niji was waiting. Ranmaru, seeing him, gave a cry of "Sensei," and rammed into him, nearly strangling him in a bear hug. Niji winced as he patted the child on the head. It's good to see you too, Ranmaru-kun, but would mind letting go? He asked. My ribs are bruised. Jigomen, the boy said tearfully, wiping his eyes on his sleeve. I'm just so happy to see you all. Damn straight you should be, Tayuya said, landing beside them. come on, we need to scram before those Kumo asshats move in. Going somewhere? A rough voice called them from below. Jiraiya sighed as I stepped out of the trees with a small battalion behind him. Raikage-sama, Jiraiya said, trying for reason, you do realize that this boy you're after is a Konoha shinobi, don't you? I laughed. I don't think so, he said, grinning up at them. One of Raiga's men was a spy of mine, and kept me informed of that kid's developing eyes. He was actually supposed to bring him to me once they matured, so you see, I have a claim on him. Like hell you do. Tayuya snapped angrily, gripping a kunai tightly, you won't touch my little brother. Or mine, said a new voice, one that the four of them recognized. Naruto stepped out of the trees, looking ragged, tired, and pissed. Tayuya could see that he was unharmed, but showed signs of injury from the blood on his clothes. She realized that the fox had probably healed him sometime during the chase. I regarded the newcomer with contempt, so you managed to get past B? Humph, he must be getting rusty. I'll have to send him out on missions more often to whip him back into shape. Naruto growled, and shocked them all by how beast-like it sounded, even I. It takes a Jinchuriki to beat a Jinchuriki, Naruto said as his new Shikuten flames flare up around his arms and legs. And I'm no ordinary Jinchuriki. I was starting to regard this boy with a slight respect. He resembled someone he had fought against long ago, yet, so, it's true, you are his son, aren't you? Jiraiya stiffened, hoping the blonde wouldn't get curious, but those hopes were destroyed the moment the blonde smiled. Yeah, I'm Minato's son. Naruto said without humor, spreading his arms out as if presenting himself, Orenjiiro no Kagayaki, Uzumaki Naruto, son of Konoha no Kuroi Senko and Akai Chishio no Habanero. He clapped his hands together into the snake seal, looking up at Jiraiya, and motioning for them to leave before turning his attention back to the Raikage. I'll give you one chance, let us go. I outright laughed at the young Chunin, or what? Use it, runt. Kyuubi roared. Run. Naruto yelled, going through dog, horse and tiger, and Jiraiya took off with the others grasped under his arms, Shikuten, Shukyaku. An enormous amount of chakra was then gathered underneath the boy's skin as the flames from before sprouted from his skin. I could recognize a large amount of it being the chakra of a Biju, knowing that Konoha housed the Kyuubi, though this was the last place he expected to meet him, let alone it being his old enemy's son. Suddenly, B was there, grasping his brother under the arms, and lifting him out of harm's way as Naruto gave out a scream as the flames erupted from him in a massive wall of flames, scorching anything unlucky enough to get in its way, like the slower shinobi in his squad. I could only watch as his men were incinerated. == Some distance away, Jiraiya and his charges rested against the trees as they waited. Naruto still hadn't made an appearance, yet, and after the shock of the jutsu he used, no one wanted to think about what had happened. Tayuya was pacing back and forth, attempting to wear a rut in the ground, apparently. What's taking him so fucking long? She growled, he should have been back by now. Jiraiya sighed, relax, Tayuya-chan, he said, much to the girl's ire, if he died, then the fox's chakra would have erupted like a volcano, and seeing as it hasn't he's most likely taking his time. A justa like that would have taken a hell of a lot of chakra. It did, Naruto groaned fro himself as he limped out of the forest, smiling at his friends in greeting, miss me? You idiot. The yell came from the most least likely source. Tayuya launched herself at the blonde, knocking them both to the ground. Do you have any fucking idea how worried I've been? Where the hell were you? Oh whoa wow whoa. Naruto yelled, take it easy. I was trying to take the long way so I wouldn't leave a trail. Tayuya glared down at him, after that stunt you just pulled? I don't think those fucktards are gonna come looking for you. Neji scoffed, Naruto just used Shikuten, he pointed out when the girl rounded on him. Kumo loves Kekkei Genkai more than Konoha does, so they would have gone for him, Jinchuriki or not. His statement brought the whole conversation to a halt. Tayuya looked down at the blonde she had pinned before getting off to help him up. Naruto was glad she wasn't angry, but was surprised when fiery redhead wrapped her arms around him. Tayuya? I'm sorry, she whispered, hiding her face in his shoulder. I'm so sorry. I should have known. The signs were all there. The healing, the large chakra reserves. She looked up at him. Why didn't you tell me? Naruto shrugged, blushing at the girl's closeness. I guess, I didn't want you to hate me. He admitted, I don't have a lot of friends, and, well, I guess I thought you might want to get away from OW. Tayuya smacked him. What was that for? I could never hate you. She yelled, shocking him as tears sprang to her eyes. You're the first friend I've ever had, and you think, after all the shit that I went through because of that fucking snake, I'd hate you because you had an overgrown furball in you. The next person to call me a furball is gonna get eaten. Kyuubi snapped, but Naruto ignored him, hugging Tayuya against him tightly. "Thanks, Tayuya-chan," he said, resting his chin on top of her head. "When did that happen?" She wondered as she used to be taller than the blonde. Ahem, Jiraiya cut in, "I really hate to break this up, seriously, but some things need to be explained, I think." Naruto glared over the top of Tayuya's head. "You first." X equals. RWAH. I roared angrily, damn it all, we were so damned close to having the Byakugan. How the hell did he get past you, anyway? B and, coincidentally, Mabui, were cowering behind what was left of the Raikage's desk, having been thrown against the wall in a rage, followed by several large holes punched through the walls. B peeked over the top. "Well, you see, that Gaki had some mad skills, he said as he brother raged. "He got me with that Shokutten of his, and then knocked me clean with about 1,000 exploding clones, gee." I roared again, his lightning armor forming. "Mabui, update the bingo books. I want that little rat on the run." Mabui poked her head above the desk just so her eyes were visible. "Hi, Raikage-sama, but please don't destroy any more walls." "Shut up." X equals. Jiraiya stared at the blonde over the fire they'd built after his arrival, night having settled. Naruto looked like he was ready to tear someone apart, literally. His eyes were still red and slit. "So?" Jiraiya asked, "What do you have to say?" Naruto growled, "I want to knock your lights out." He snapped, "You never told me who my mother was, because she was from a great clan that was coveted, yeah, but why the hell didn't you tell me about my dad?" Sarutobi thought it would be best since IWA still holds a slight grudge against him, Jiraiya explained. Both he and the council thought it would spark another war if it was known Minato had a son. Tayuya nodded, "Yeah, I can understand that. A lot of people cursed his name when I still lived in my village." Jiraiya sighed. "He also thought you would have gone running your mouth the moment you found out who your father was," he continued. "Believe me, I wanted to tell you, and so did Tsunade, but we wanted to honor his wishes." Naruto clasped his hands in front of him, looking into the flames. "And what about you?" he asked. "Where were you these last 13 years? Jiraiya thought about that for a moment. "I could tell you at least 1,000 things that would make sense, and 1,001 more that wouldn't," he said quietly, "but the simple fact of the matter was I was scared shitless of being a parent, let alone a guardian. I had no knowledge about children, nor was my reputation anything to be proud of. So I gave you over to Sarutobi-sensei in hopes that he would watch over you until I could come train you myself. I see now that I was wrong to do so. When I heard about your life up until now, I wanted to murder each and every one of those fools that made you miserable, but then I'd be just like Orochimaru." He looked up at the boy, whose face was darkened by the shadows cast by the fire. "I wasn't totally out of your life. I would drop by and make sure you were alright, and leave money with sensei so you could buy food and clothing, though it wasn't until later that I had heard people were upping the prices for you specifically. I would also send you birthday gifts, remember Gama-chan?" "That was you?" Naruto asked without looking up. "And Nightcap-kun," Jiraiya smiled, recalling Naruto's nicknames for the little nightcap he wore. "I also bought you that houseplant when you showed interest in gardening." Naruto remained quiet afterwards. Jiraiya sighed, "Your father and I were as close as father and son. And I loved your mother just as much as if she were my own daughter. But in their greatest time of need, I wasn't there. I could have performed the Shiki Fuin back then so you would at least have one of them, or both, considering Uzumaki have been known to survive the extraction of a Biju, but to my greatest shame, I was out of the village. And to add to my shame, when they named me your godfather, I panicked and left again." He looked at the boy, who still looked down at his hands. "I will understand if you wish to call our training quits right now. After all I've done, I wouldn't want me around either." Naruto clenched his teeth. "Are you trying to run away again?" he asked, looking up at him, his eyes welling with tears as they became their cerulean hues again. "I just found out I have one small bit of family left, and now he wants to hightail it back home just because I'm pissed at him? Some godfather you are, pervy sage. Would you stop calling me?" "No, you lost that the moment I found out who you were." Naruto roared, "You've got a lot of making up to do, and it's not just me now." He gestured to Tayuya and Ranmaru. "You've got 3 of us now, and you've promised to train all of us. You're not backing out of that. I won't let you." "He's right," Ranmaru said quietly, looking over at the Sannin. "I'm happy with the 3 of you. It's almost like I really have a big brother and sister, and grandfather, even if you can get a little crazy." Tayuya huffed, crossing her arms. "You promised me a shot at Orochimaru. I ain't leaving until I can kill that bitch." Jiraiya looked around at all of the students he now had and smiled. "I can't win against all of you, alright, I give up. I'll stick around." 1 week later, Konohagakure no Sato equals. Tsunade was sitting in her office going over the day's paperwork with the aid of Kakashi as he had been elected future Rokudame, when Shizune burst through the door. "Tsunade-sama. It's terrible." Tsunade looked up from her work and noticed that Shizune held a bingo book to her chest. "Don't tell me. Naruto's been added as an C/B rank shinobi under Kumo." Bingo book reports. Orenjiro no Kagayaki aka Naruto Uzumaki, high C to low B rank shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato. Displays extreme mastery of Kagebushin no Jutsu, and is confirmed to be in possession of Kirigakure no Sato's Kiba, twin thunderswords. Confirmed son of Minato Namikaze, Konoha no Kuroi Senko, and Kushina Uzumaki, Akai Chishio no Habanero. Clan affiliation, Uzumaki clan. Age, 13 to 14. Status/rank, Chunin Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Kekkai Genkai, seemingly Shikuten, Scorch release. Approach with caution. Bounty for live capture, 10,000 Ryo/dead, 8,000 Ryo. Tayuya, a young, powerful kunoichi of Konohagakure no Sato. Known to use the demonic flute technique, it is advised to keep a fair distance away when facing her. She also displays mastery of the Onodoro no Jutsu, demon lanterns, of Kusugakure no Sato, combining it with the Kasumi Inbyu no Jutsu to cause massive wide-range damage. Clan affiliation, unknown. Age, 14 to 15. Status/rank, Gen-nin. Kekkai Genkai, none. Bounty, 8,000 Ryo/dead 6,000 Ryo. Approach with extreme caution. Ranmaru Kurisuki, an unknown child affiliated with Konohagakure. Wanted by Kumogakure no Sato for reasons unknown. Known Byakugan user, but very powerful known jutsu is the Juken of the Hyuga clan. Bounty, 150,000 Ryo alive only. Chapter 16. Tsunade read and reread the bingo book again and again, hardly believing what she was seeing. Naruto, wanted by Kumo, and using Shikuten? How many people have seen this? Tsunade asked, dreading the answer. Shizune whimpered, Irika and I had already passed them out to the clans and Umbu forces before reading them. Kakashi sighed from his seat, then that means we should be hearing about it any minute, now. He said, before popping open his favorite copy of Ika Ika, Paradise. And he was right. Not a moment later, one Hayashi Hyuga came storming into the office, holding a copy of the Bing book. Hokage-sama, have you seen this new page in the books? He asked, an edge in his voice sharp as a knife. There seems to be a boy on your former comrade's team that has my family's Kekkai Genkai. Tsunade kept her voice low as she sighed, showing him her copy, so it would seem, Hayashi-san. Hayashi felt his left eye twitch. Did you know? I deemed it an S-rank secret, she relented with a nod, but since the cat's out of the bag, I don't see any reason in lying about it. She placed the book on the desk and gestured for the man to sit, which he did heavily, running his hand over his face. I realize what this must put you through as the clan head, but the boy is in no relation to you, or the Hyuga, a distant relative, perhaps, but certainly not close. Hayashi sighed, I will be frank with you, my lady, this is going to cause a clusterfuck with the clan. Tsunade raised a brow at the man's crass language, but allowed it, seeing as the Hyuga elders were, well, I am at a loss. I know that he is the reason Niji has been on edge now, and that you have sent him off to train the boy, which means, when he returns, his mission will be known to the clan, and the elders will execute him without hesitation. Kakashi groaned, Tenin-chan isn't going to like that at all, he said, closing his book. We can probably get away with lying about the mission report, but not for long. Or we could classify his latest mission as S-rank, considering what he must have went through this past week. Tsunade nodded. What's more, Naruto's use of Shikuten is going to make the council members want him back for breeding stock, right along with little Ranmaru. Disgusting, Hayashi mumbled, it seems we are both plagued by our elders. Before the blonde could agree, Enko, without even a knock, came bustling through the door, and spotted both Hayashi's and Tsunade's books. Well, looks like you know. Both nodded, making her smile widely as she sauntered over to Kakashi and plopped down in his lap, making him blush underneath his mask. Then I've got a little something you might like to brighten things up. She pulled a scroll out of her coat, and handed it to Tsunade. Jiraiya sent this view messenger bird from a little village just outside of Kumo territory. Seems our old friend, Ice been a naughty little boy. Tsunade and Hayashi gave the woman a look as the blonde unfurled the scroll and began to read. Oh, dear Kami, she breathed out, slumping over in her seat. Hayashi looked up at the scroll. Ah, so that's why the bounty was so high for the child? He said, those fools have been after the Byakugan for years, and this was dangerously close. Yes, Tsunade said, taking the scroll up again, we were damned lucky. Not only did Naruto save him, but those new abilities of his aided him in eliminating half a battalion of ice men. And one Jitan user that was in the bingo books as a B+ rank. Naoko's going to make that boy very rich. Kakashi, shifting a giggling Anko in his lap, leaned over to get a look for himself. Well, this is interesting, he began reading. After we got out of Kumo, we headed for the nearest village so we could rest and recover. Naruto and Neji's chakra network took quite a bit of strain from their new techniques. If you've just gotten this within the week, then you should know that Naruto is now a Shikuten user. Strange as it seems, I found out from the Kyuubi, through Naruto, that this wasn't the Kekka Genkai. How is that possible? Hayashi asked. I thought Shikuten was nearly impossible to find, let alone create on one's own. It explains here, Tsunade said, taking over. When it was explained, I found that Naruto's body was altered so that his chakra system could support all 5 elements of chakra, and, with a little training, combine certain elements to create others. Kyuubi explained that, long before shinobi villagers or even clans were established, that some shinobi were disciplined in their control to such an extent that they could create new elements, such as Shikuten. Later, as this skill was taught to others, and families were formed, unique traits were passed. Since both parents possessed control of the new element, a child was born capable of natural control of it, thus beginning the elemental Kekkai Genkai. Hayashi sat back and thought, that makes a lot of sense. Most of the Kekkai Genkai that were so sought after were elementals because they were so rare after the Second War, and now they're all but extinct. I wonder if this skill can be taught? What else does Jiraiya-sama have to say? Shizune asked in interest. Tsunade continued, as I'm sure you're wondering, the answer is yes, this can be taught. Naruto is already working on perfecting his Shikuten skills, as well as coaching Tayuya in what do about combining the elements, which she's finding difficult, but doable. Naruto's not having much luck either. During the battle, the Kyuubi was helping him with the control, and he was facing off against the Hachibi no Jinchuriki. Without the Kyuubi's help, he's back to square one, only able to use 1 or 2 weaker moves which coincide with his taijutsu. As it stands, he could easily master the technique with the aid of his Kage Bushins, which he's been using like a plague sweeping through a village. He's determined to get this down so he can move on to the next element. Though Kyuubi seems to be coaching him, it's still hard on him seeing as he has abysmal control over his chakra. We're working on that as we speak. We've come across a particular seal that could actually restrain the amount of chakra he uses to give him better control. I say restrain because that's the name of the seal, Osiru no Fuin, or restriction sealing method. It's simple, and I've applied it to all of the Gaki's Neji and included, and I've seen one hell of an improvement already. Naruto's not using half the chakra he normally uses for jutsu, or his clones. This simple seal, I think, is what made the Uzumaki so damned frightening. They had massive chakra reserves, too much for simple techniques, yet they were probably more powerful than both Senju and Uchiha clans. Tsunade took a breath, looking over the scroll in wonder. This is incredible, Hayashi finished as he listened. If I knew such things existed. He shook his head. Perhaps there's hope for my clan yet if the Uzumaki seals were so powerful? Tsunade looked up at him, hoping for the caged bird seal's destruction? Yes, the man said without hesitation, it still grieves me that my brother gave his life for me, all because he was a branch member. My father never was the same after his death, nor was I. Anko giggled, keep reading, it gets better. While we rest, and I send this message to you, Haim, I should tell you, Naruto knows about his father. Tsunade rose out of her seat in shock as she shouted the last bit, how the hell did that happen? Kakashi took over reading. Naruto told me that while fighting against Killer Bee, he recognized him. He knew and fought with Minato back in the war, nearly got him, too. Apparently he respected him a lot, and Naruto and Bee became friends before he hit Ice Squad with his jutsu. Either way, Naruto's pissed at me still, and he's been taking it out on me in our spars every chance I give him. I've gotta say those exploding clones of his never cease to amaze me. Kakashi trailed off, going pale right along with Anko. Dear Kami, the village's #1 prankster can use exploding clones. We're so dead, aren't we? Anko whined, waterfall tears running down her cheeks. Oh, for Kami's sake. Shizune yelled, growing impatient, and snatching the scroll so she could read it aloud. Once we rested and gotten far enough away from Kumo, we'll take refuge at the Fire Temple for a few months before finally making our way to Suna, and from there, we head to the Land of Iron. You know why I'm taking him there, besides the neutrality, I hope, and I promise you that once I've completed his training there, we'll be back before the start of the end of the 3rd year. I'm confident that Naruto can surpass me in all things, except my talent as a writer. The boy has no taste in literature. Ah! Tsunade scoffed, I'd be worried if he liked that mindless smut. As I'm promising you this, I have a few requests. The first is that Naruto be named my heir in my will should something happen to me. All my housings, title as Sannin, and money will be transferred to him upon confirmation of my death. Second, I would like you to rebuild the Uzumaki compound that was abandoned on the outskirts of the village. You know the area. Mito often went there to think. I think all that remains is the mask shrine. There's at least 30 acres there to start with, and if needed, take funding from my accounts to expand should you have to. I have no intentions of letting Naruto stay in that roach-infested boarding house anymore. Thirdly, I'd like a smaller compound purchased for Ranmaru Kurasuke, as he will be taking Raiga's family name and clan when he comes to the village. I know it's a lot to ask, but these two deserve that much, and more. Shizune put the scroll down, that's all there is. Tsunade sighed, a small smile tugging at her lips, that old goat's just given me a hell of a workload. Does he realize that building on clan compound is hard enough, but a smaller one to boot? Hayashi smiled and thought, Kurasuke, eh? Perhaps I should see if Hanabi-chan would be interested. Kakashi chuckled, you leave that to me. I remember going to Uzushio once when it was still around, so I know what the compound should look like. Tsunade glared, so do I, or did you forget I'm a quarter Uzumaki? Oops. Kakashi's sweat dropped. Enko-chan, Kakashi is relieved of duty for the day, Tsunade growled, Enko lighting up like a torch before dragging a white-eyed Kakashi out of the room faster than Naruto could run for ramen. Shizune gave her mentor a slightly devious smirk, that was cruel. He's a Kage, now, he can deal with it. Tsunade snipped, returning her gaze to Hayashi, again, I'm sorry that this matter was kept from you so long. We were afraid that others might use Ranmaru for his abilities as Raiga did before the Jujutsu matured. But I can assure you that he stole no eyes from the Hyuga clan. Hayashi nodded, I believe you, and understand your misgivings. My clan elders, most of them, would have sought to brand him and turn him into a stud for breeding, even though I cannot condone such things. It is my hope that among the Uzumaki techniques Naruto is privy to, he will find a way to remove the seal from Neji and our other members. If that is done, then the elders, the brand, it all comes to an end. Tsunade nodded her thanks to him as he rose, I hope the elders don't trouble you too much over this. They won't let me hear the end of it, he chuckled as he left. Tsunade sighed and sat back in contentment, well, I suppose we should get started. 2 compounds are going to take some doing if we want them both ready in the next 2.5 years. Equals with Naruto equals. Shouldering a large red storage scroll, Naruto glanced back at his teammates, about how long will it take to reach the temple? Jiraiya thought for a moment, about 3 days as the crow flies, if nothing stops us. He smirked at his blonde pupil, after that display you used against the Raikage, I'm not gonna hold my breath though. Tayuya bumped into the blonde with her shoulder, yeah, and it won't be long before I get the hang of this fire/water combo you and the furball said I could try out, so any of those fuckers better watch out if they want our heads. Ranmaru looked over at the young Hyuga, Neji-sensei, do you think you could teach me that Kaiten you used with fire chakra? Neji gave the boy a small smile, maybe, but you have a lightning affinity, Ranmaru. Perhaps we could do that instead? The troop chatted as they moved down the road at a sedate pace, unaware of the pair of eyes on them. He's gotten much stronger than we thought, Itachi-kun? Kisame asked from the shadows. So it would seem, Itachi said from his side, but that just makes the game more interesting, doesn't it? Chapter 17. Ah, this feels so good. Tayuya sighed happily as she dipped her feet in the river they were camped beside. I can't believe it's been so long since we were able to relax like this. She looked further up the stream where Naruto was collecting water for their canteens. How are you feeling? Naruto grinned at her, her good mood infectious, better. Crazy how much strain Kurama's chakra put on me when he forced all my other elemental chakras to activate, huh? He asked, never thought I'd be in that much pain just from chakra burns. He sat down beside her, and dipped his feet in, sandals and all. What about you, are you doing alright? Tayuya blinked at him, me? Why the hell would I be feeling bad? She asked, thinking back over the last few days after their escape. They had spent almost the entire week running to get out of Kumo's territory, avoiding a few patrol squads that hadn't gotten word of the battle yet, and just keeping out of sight at times, not even lighting a fire at night, even though it was getting cold. Kumo's surrounding climate got colder than Iwa, or Konoha's for that matter. She hadn't liked it at all that first night they slept in the black of night without the comforting warmth of a fire to keep them company. Naruto shrugged, you haven't been sleeping all that well. He pointed out, a small blush dusting both their cheeks. In truth, Tayuya found that the dark terrified her, leading her to getting little to no sleep during the night. On the 3rd night without fire, she'd had a nightmare that she was back in Orochimaru's compounds. She'd woken up gasping, and found Naruto sitting next to her. The blonde Chunin hadn't said a word, but simply slid in beside on the bedroll. Tayuya nearly threw a fit, of course, but that would have alerted the others, and she could do without the embarrassment. Before she could say anything to him though, he'd pulled her down beside him, resting her head on his chest before telling her to go to sleep. Without much of a choice, bar causing a racket, she fell asleep soon afterward, and slept through the night. The teasing had been terrible, but it was well worth a good night's sleep. Tayuya smiled at the recent memories. I've been getting better, she said truthfully, reaching out to touch her hand to the water, letting it swirl around her fingers, and then flicked it at him. I owe you for that one, thanks, she said, the blush on her cheeks brightening as she leaned against his shoulder. Naruto gulped at the contact while a certain fox was howling at him in laughter as the boy's heart took off. Okay, this is kinda nice? Kyubi put in with a laugh, just admit that you're attracted to her already, and tell her how you feel. Not happening, Naruto said, trying not to look at the girl leaning on him, knowing his resolve would be nothing but dust if he did. I don't feel that way about her. I've told you that before. Humph, liar, Kyubi said, sifting through his vessel's memories, mainly of Tayuya. The moment he saw her bathing in the river nearly made the boy whimper, while the rage he felt the day he'd killed Raiga on her behalf still made him feel cold. The feeling of Tayuya's arms around him after his fight against the squad of Kumo shinobi was still fresh and warm. Admit it. Naruto admitted nothing, but slowly, steadily, placed his left arm around her shoulders. Tayuya for her part, was a little startled the contact, but allowed it, thinking it was just him being friendly, as usual. That, and she was used to the feeling after 4 nights of sleeping in his arms. In all honesty, she liked it. Naruto was warm, and, in her opinion, made a comfortable pillow. Though it still irked her that he was taller than her now, he was starting to look more like a man than the silly, smiling boy she'd met only 5 months ago. So much had happened since then that it felt more like years than months to her, and she couldn't see herself surviving without either her new sensei, or Naruto. When she thought about, she could see that the blonde Chunin was not only her friend, but her best friend. Ranmaru was like her little brother, and Neji even seemed to like her. But Naruto was different. She looked up for a moment, watching the water flow by, reveling in the peacefulness of the day. But something caught her attention. A small whine that was coming from the river upstream. What's that? Both teens turned as a small, furry blob floated down the river, trying frantically to get to shore. Oh! Tayuya was on her feet and in the water in a matter of moments as she raced to get to the little animal. Careful, Tayuya-chan! Naruto yelled as he went after her, fearing the current would catch her. Tayuya didn't pay any attention to him as she hunched down to scoop up the little creature. As she raised back up, 2 tiny golden brown eyes were staring back at her with what she thought might be relief. A tiny red fox kit was now nestled in her arms, shivering from the near drowning. Tayuya made her way back to shore with a little help from Naruto as he reached her and hauled her out of the water. How'd that little guy get in the water? Naruto asked when he saw the little fox she was holding. Tayuya shrugged, probably fell in when it got separated from its mother. She said as she started petting the little critter as it nuzzled against her for warmth, making her giggle. He's adorable. X equals. What happened to you two? Ranmaru asked when Naruto and Tayuya returned to camp and saw the little fox tucked in the girl's arms. Wow! I've never seen a baby fox before, he cried, rushing over to see the little animal. The fox kit was wary of the child, but allowed him to pet it, its ears flattened out. Neji came over to inspect the animal as well, having never seen one in person since Konoha had a deep disliking of foxes in general after the Kyubi's assault. It's so small, it can't be more than a few months old, can it? He has his teeth, Naruto smirked, holding up a slightly bloodied finger that the little fellow had mistaken for food. Ranmaru giggled childishly as the fox shook his fur out after being petted by the boy. Are you gonna keep him? Why not? Tayuya smiled at the boy. This team's already a band of misfits, so what's one more? I beg your pardon? Neji growled. Tayuya just grinned at him. No offense? Naruto just laughed and patted her on the shoulder. Don't mind him, he's just a tight ass by nature. Hey! Neji said, sounding insulted. I'm standing right here in case you've forgotten? X equals. By the time Jiraiya arrived at camp from buying supplies in Keishi, Tayuya's new friend had been fed, and was curled up against her stomach while she sat in front of the campfire as Naruto and Neji cooked their dinner. The aging Gama Sanin took a look at the fox and smiled. Well, looky here. The man smiled. Never thought I'd see a spirit fox from Mori no Kuni all the way out here. Tayuya and the others looked at him in surprise. Spirit fox? She asked looking at the sleeping kit. This little guy's a spirit? Jiraiya nodded. A young one. Where did you find him? He was floating down the river when Tayuya saw him, Naruto said as the man took a seat next to the red head. Jiraiya chuckled as the little fox came away with a squeak, and looked around with wide, intelligent eyes. Far too intelligent for a normal fox. Well, now I don't have to worry about finding you another contract to sign, he said as the little fox regarded him, and knelt in front of them. Little one, he said, addressing the fox, who stood up, his bushy tail raised up high, in return for my student saving thy life, I make this request. Allow her to sign the contract so that you may form the bond of summoning. Tayuya watched in wonder as her fox emitted a small amount of chakra she hadn't sensed from him before, and jumped into the air, twirling end over end before a puff of smoke came from him, and down fell a large scroll into the Jiraiya's waiting hands, while the kid fell back onto Tayuya's lap, looking up at her while wagging his tail. By now, the boys' attention was thoroughly caught as they gathered around while Jiraiya opened the scroll for Tayuya, and smiled. Not one person signed this scroll. You've got no idea how rare this is. And foxes, too. Jiraiya beamed. Neji knelt to examine the scroll. Why is the fox scroll so special compared to other summoning scrolls? He asked. Most of the scrolls I've seen have a few names written from their family ties, and they're all around this size, but other than the rarity of the creature, I can't see anything special. Jiraiya just grinned as Tayuya knelt to join them, the little fox crawling up to her shoulder. Well, it's the foxes themselves that are special. Well, any beast from Mori no Kuni is worth the risk if you happen to go there. The four children looked at him in confusion. Let me explain. Mori no Kuni is probably the most wild place in the world. There aren't any people there because the animals are all savage and large like they were in the dawn of time. It's also where many spirits like foxes, dragons, and phoenix live. Out of those three, dragons are the most revered and powerful, but they fear the fox because the fox is both cunning and powerful. A phoenix, while powerful, isn't as smart as the fox, and would lose in a battle without a doubt, and the dragon, while he could overpower the fox in a direct fight, would lose if the fox could outwit him. Naruto whistled in appreciation. Man, it's a wonder why no one's tried to get the contract before. Jiraiya shrugged, probably because no one wants to risk it. I wasn't kidding when I said that land was wild, he said, and gestured to Tayuya. Now, since the little fella likes you, it'd be best if you signed it, and tried to summon. Okay, then, Tayuya said, retrieving a kunai from her holster, and making a small cut on her thumb. This feels sorta like betraying the contract I already have. Jiraiya shrugged. The Doki tribe never have held on to their summoners. From what I hear, they usually eat them if not controlled properly. Needless to say, Tayuya hurriedly signed her name away. Jiraiya stepped back. Alright, give her some room, no telling how big the summon will be, he said as he and the other backed off. Performing the necessary hand seals, Tayuya slammed her injured hand to the ground, resulting in a surprisingly large puff of smoke. Who has summoned me? Asked a gentle, yet harsh voice. Tayuya nearly yelped as she came face to face with her new summon. I am wife of the great Suzaku, Kagura of the eastern forests. Kagura was an imposing creature, even though she wasn't as big as some of the toads Jiraiya summoned. A fox the size of a horse with 5 bushy tails was nothing short of amazing. Tayuya gave a stiff bow to the vixen. It was me that summoned you, Kakagura-sama. My name is Tayuya of the North Gate. She used her old title from the Sound 4, hoping to make herself sound presentable. It's an honor to meet you. The little fox on her shoulder gave a short yip and hopped over to the larger female, and landed on her head. Kusano-chan? So this is where you'd gotten off to? She inquired of the kid, getting a long string of yips and whines from him. I see. She looked at the girl. Thank you for saving my kid. I had been worried for some time about his whereabouts. I take it that he was the one that supplied the scroll for you. He was, Tayuya nodded, smiling at the little fox. He's such a little sweetie. My friends and I were glad to take care of him. Kagura looked around at the gathered shinobi, taking interest in Naruto and Jiraiya. Toad summoners? How interesting. I would have thought they would have you sign their contract? Jiraiya offered the fox a smile. We thought about that, but Gamabunta can be rather harsh with his summoners, and Tayuya-chan is more of a long-range fighter while the toads are close combat experts. Kagura dipped her head in a nod as she seated herself. Sound logic. Very well, I will test her. Test? Tayuya asked. Never fear, I will simply ask you 3 riddles before approving you to my mate, where he will ask you a 4th riddle. Kagura explained, we prefer our summoners to have some wit about them, as we kitsune are a cunning breed. Do all summoned spirits test their summoners? Ranmaru asked, eyeing the massive canine. Kagura nodded in his direction. As a matter of fact, we do, little one. The Kitsune test is to have a summoner answer our riddles, which is far more simple than what old Kahaku of the Dragon Clan does. Unless you find the idea of facing a dragon in single combat inviting? Tayuya shivered at the thought of such a thing. I'll take the riddles. Kagura smiled. Then let us begin. You can easily touch me, but cannot see me. You can throw me out, but not away. What am I? The Kitsune asked. Tayuya sat in thought for a moment. Easily touch, but not see, throw me out, but not away, you're my back. I can reach my back, but I can't see it, and I can throw it out if I lift something too heavy, but I can't throw it away because it's part of me. Well done, Kagura dipped her head. Next, what has 13 hearts, but not other organs? Tayuya smiled. That's easy, it's a deck of cards. Correct, Kagura smiled. It seems my son has picked a good summoner. Now, for my final riddle before I can summon my mate. In the morning I walk on 4 legs, in the afternoon I walk on 2, in the evening I walk on 3, what am I? Tayuya smiled once more, snapping her fingers. The cycle of a human life. First you crawl as a baby, then you walk as an adult, and use a cane when you grow old. Kagura rose to her feet. That was well done, and your answers came quickly. You are able to plan while under pressure, and are clever to boot. I will now summon my mate so he may test you with one final riddle. Kagura stomped her right paw on the ground, forming a summoning circle of her own. Tayuya jumped back. Know that if this was indeed the boss summon, he would be enormous. Naruto watched his friend as the larger puff of smoke erupted in front of them, seeing that she was right to move. This Suzaku was indeed a boss-level summon, because the last time Naruto had seen a puff that large was when Jiraiya had summoned Gamabunta. A gigantic white paw stepped out of the smoke, crashing into the ground, making the poor humans gulp at the size. Tayuya gasped as she caught sight of the beast inside the cloud. Be beautiful. Suzaku was a snow fox. A massive, 9-tailed snow fox with black-tipped ears and tails. He cast an icy glare down at the girl in front of him, and glanced toward the smaller Kagura. Kagura, why did you summon me so far outside our territory? The Kitsune rumbled. You know that I do not like leaving our lands unless necessary. I know you don't, my love, but I was summoned here by a Ningen vixen, Kagura explained. She's answered all of my proffered riddles, and you know that means that I have to summon you to make the last one. Suzaku looked down at the girl once more with slight contempt. Kagura sighed. She also saved our son from drowning. I think that more than warrants our gratitude, don't you agree? The massive fox didn't answer, opting to keep his ice-blue eyes trained on Tayuya. Naruto thought for a moment that he might attack her, and moved in closer to her, catching the summon's attention. Boy, you have no business interfering. Naruto glared at him. I'm just making sure you don't try anything. He said to the fox, showing no fear. I've had a few experiences of my own from a certain fox that tried more than once to trick me. Ouch, now that hurt. It's no less true, you old furball. Suzaku glared at him, then caught his scent. Ah, you hold our king. The great Kyuubi is sealed within your body. He turned his attention back to Tayuya. If you are in companionship with this one, then I know she will not disappoint. Now, I will ask my riddle. Suzaku took a deep breath, and began. What is greater than kami, worse than evil, which the poor have and the rich require, and if you eat it, you die? Tayuya gulped. That's kinda harder than Kagura-san's. She thought for a moment. Is there something greater than the kami? And what could be worse than evil that poor people have, but the rich require it? And if I ate it, then I'd die. For a long time, Tayuya didn't answer, and Suzaku began to grow impatient. Your answer, Ningen? He growled from above. Pursing her lips, Tayuya looked up at the great beast. I think the answer is, nothing. Nothing, you say? Tayuya nodded. Nothing could be greater than a kami, and there's nothing I know of that's worse than evil, plus the poor having nothing, and the rich require nothing, and I didn't eat anything, I'd eventually starve to death, so I say the answer is nothing. Kagura looked up at her mate, and smiled. I told you she was clever. Indeed, Suzaku smiled, looking down at her. You have passed our test, little one. Tayuya broke into a smile. The Kitsune of Mori no Kuni welcome you to our clan. Call upon us when you have need, and we shall honor the blood of the contract. Tayuya gave a grateful bow to the Kitsune. Thank you so much, Suzaku-sama, Kagura-sama. The family of Kitsune bowed to her in turn, and vanished in a puff of smoke as all summons do, leaving the humans alone. As the smoke cleared, Tayuya sank to her knees. That was terrifying. Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder. I'll say. That Suzaku was bigger than Gamabunta. Ranmaru came running over to her. This is great, One-chan. You've got a really strong summoning. And we have a burned meal, Jiraiya sighed, pointing over to the pot that Naruto and Neji had hung over the fire before Tayuya's ordeal. Oh, well, I guess we can go back to Keishi and find a food stand. Equals x equals. Have you seen the latest Bing book? Muri asked. That bastard Namikaze had a brat. He tossed the book down into the dust. What are we gonna do about it, Seiji? The man he was addressing shrugged. Not much we can do about it while we're out here. He said, gesturing to the outpost around them. Tsuchikage-sama wouldn't want us harming him, but if I told the truth, I wouldn't mind putting an end to the little rat if I saw him. Muri smiled at this. We've got 40 good men patrolling the borders of wind, earth, and mountains, as well as all the small border countries. If he comes anywhere near us, we'll know, and he'll be dead. He sneered as Seiji picked up the book. Don't be so sure. He travels with the Gama Sanin, and is a Jinchuriki. Don't forget what Rashijiji was capable of. Seiji cautioned, looking at the picture of the blonde boy. Still, I'm sure he would be a worthy opponent. Chapter 18. It was late, well past midnight as Naruto looked at the large building in front of them and sighed. Man, I can't believe this place. It looks like a palace. He said, hoisting Ranmaru higher onto his back. Tayuya groaned beside him, leaning on his shoulder. As far as I'm fucking concerned, it is a palace. She moaned, Kami, I'm tired. Jiraiya patted her on the head, smiling at her. It couldn't be helped, Tayuya-chan, he told the girl, earning her glare. It's better that we got here a day or so ahead of schedule than still be traveling. Niji nodded. I believe Jiraiya-sama is right. Those bandits we came across earlier were well aware of your bounties, and they didn't hesitate to go for Ranmaru-kun right off the bat. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. It's lucky that they were weaklings, or they would have gotten us with sheer numbers alone. Everybody wants that damned reward. Naruto sighed as he and the rest stepped over the boundary. You sure we'll be safe here, Pervy Sage? Ignoring the blonde's nickname for him, Jiraiya nodded. I know we will. This is the temple where shinobi monk train day in and day out in hopes of finding the meaning of chakra. If anything, you will all be able to rest and train here while things cool down. He looked down at the blonde as he shifted to the sleeping boy on his back. Besides, Ranmaru's been through quite a bit. It'll be good to have some peace for the remainder of the year. Naruto sighed, knowing that he was right. It hadn't even been the full first year and they'd already gotten into so much trouble that it was on par with the invasion of Konoha. Chiriku, Jiraiya called out a moment later, startling the four young shinobi as a tall monk stepped into the light of the moon. It's good to see you, old friend. I hope we haven't found you at a bad time? Chiriku gave them a small smile. Not at all. It's always nice to have visitors at any given time, he said, taking in the state of the four young shinobi behind the man, but it would seem that you lot have had a bit of a rough time? You don't know the half of it, Jiraiya sighed, gesturing to the team. We could all use a good night's rest, and some downtime if that's all right with you? Stay as long as you like, Chiriku said. It'll be nice to have a few young ones around besides the younger monks. Come, I'll show you to your rooms. As Jiraiya followed after the monk, Naruto was right behind him, leading a dozing Tayuya even as she walked along behind him. But the moment he stepped toward the temple, he felt something was wrong. Hey, do you feel that? He asked his tenant. I do, the fox said in interest, and there's no mistake, runt. That is my chakra, both yin and yang. Strange, all of my yin chakra was supposed to be absorbed by the Shinigami when the Yondaime sealed me away inside you. So what do you think this means? Naruto asked. This feels pretty powerful, and if it's here, then it might be a threat. The Kyuubi thought for a moment. While it is worrying that some of my old chakra is present, I do not think it poses a threat, yet, which is why I advise you to find its source after you wake in the morning. Kami knows you could all use the rest. And if things lead to a fight, then you'll need your wits about you. Yeah, you're right. Of course I am, the fox grinned, making his container fault. Leave it to a 1,000-year-old fox to ruin a compliment. Naruto shook his head as Chiriku led them inside the temple. As Naruto and Tayuya passed through the halls, the blonde kept his chakra flared out in case he sensed something, a fact that Jiraiya didn't miss. If the boy was on edge, then something must have been up. Here we are, the monk said. 2 of the boys may share this room. Though, I'm afraid we're unused to having females stay with us, so the young lady will have to share with one of them if she feels comfortable. Jiraiya gave the blonde and redhead a lecherous grin. Oh, she doesn't mind at all, do you, Tayuya-chan? Nope, the girl mumbled sleepily, still leaning on Naruto. Naruto grumbled, that's not fair. She's half asleep, Niji pointed out, and Ranmaru's already out like a light. Jiraiya just shrugged. Well, you can't deny that she's been sleeping near Naruto for the past week or so since we've been on the run, so this perfect? Besides, if he tried anything, you know she'd beat the tar out of him. Niji nodded, having witnessed the girl's temper on more than a few occasions. You have a point. The young Hyuga sighed and moved toward the blonde. I'll take Ranmaru, I suppose. he said, relieving the blonde of his burden, the boy mumbling sleepily as he was carried into the room. Niji gave a last, short bow to the monk. We thank you for the accommodations. Chiriku smiled. You're quite welcome, he said as Niji slid the door shut, and turned to the other young shinobi. Your room will be next to this one, he told them, giving the blonde a concerned look. I trust that there will be no lewd activities? Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. What's lewd mean? Chiriku sighed in relief. I'll take that as a no. Come along. Naruto followed him, with Jiraiya chuckling behind them. The room next to Niji's was about the same size, and looked quite cozy, especially the rolled-up futons near the wall. Thanks a lot, Chiriku-san, the blonde said as he entered the room, Tayuya trailing after him. Come on, Tayuya-chan, wake up. He grumbled as she stumbled against him. Sleepy, she yawned, nearly bumbling into him again. Jiraiya, watching the pair, had to bite back a howling laugh that surely would have disturbed the other occupants of the temple. Jiraiya turned to the monk and smiled. They'll be fine. Naruto's too kind to take advantage of anyone, let alone someone like her. Besides that, she'd knock the hell out of him if he did. Yeah, I'm not like you, pervy sage. Naruto called out from their room, causing the sage to falter. Meanwhile, Naruto had little choice but to let Tayuya rest against the wall while he got the bedding ready for them. Thankfully, the futon was large and big enough for both of them, but he knew Tayuya was probably roll over and latch onto him again. What was he, a pillow? He sighed at that, not really minding. Tayuya's presence while he slept made him feel kinda fuzzy. Twitterpated, the Kyuubi supplied with grin that blonde could almost feel. What the hell's that supposed to mean? Naruto asked the fox irritably. The Kyuubi chuckled. It means a lot of things. Besotted, infatuated, smitten, gully fluffed. The fox cackled as Naruto's face lit up like a bonfire. Will you shut up about that? Naruto roared. Kami, you and pervy sage are like a broken record. He snapped and rolled the futon out. So she's a great girl, and I like her, but that doesn't mean I like her. Pfft, you're in denial, the fox said, smirking. Let's put that to the test, shall we? What's the first thing you think of when that pink banshee comes to mind? Hurry up. Loud. Again. Violent. Again. Teammate. The fox smiled at him. Good, now what about the red female? Loud and violent. The fox sweat dropped. Is that all? Come on, runt, think of something else. Move it. Strong. Keep it up. Pretty. More. Warm, caring, gentle, rawgh, perfect. Naruto roared angrily. She's perfect, all right? Ya happy? Naruto sighed as the fox said nothing and seemingly went back to sleep. Damned fox, always making me say stuff. What's he bugging you about now? Tayuya asked. Ga, Naruto grabbed at his heart. I thought you were asleep? He yelped, turning to see the kunoichi rubbing her eyes sleepily. I kinda was until you put me down, she mumbled, a slight blush on her face. I guess I got used to how warm you are. Seriously, you like one of those space heater things. Naruto rolled his eyes as he spread the blanket out for them. Glad I could be useful. As for what the fox wanted, he was just nagging me about some weird chakra we felt earlier when we got here. Tayuya seemed to come awake. Weird how? Naruto noticed a slight tremble in her voice. Shithead, what did it feel like? Naruto shrugged. It felt like another Kyuubi, only weaker, smaller. The Kyuubi thinks that something in the area might have some of his chakra left in it from when he was running loose. Tayuya visibly relaxed. Oh, I guess that's good. She sighed, her hand against her chest. Naruto noticed this, but left it alone. He knew she was nervous about something, but figured she would tell him when she was ready. Tayuya was silent as he met up their bed, and then blushed when he started taking his clothes off. What the fuck are you doing? She yelped when she saw this. Naruto gave her a look. Getting ready for bed? Tayuya covered her face as his hiri and shit came off. You're not gonna tell me you sleep in the buff? My pants, thank you, Naruto said, finishing. And why are you embarrassed? You've seen me like this before. Yeah, in the bath. She snapped again. Naruto smirked at her, deciding it was payback time. So, you can use me as a pillow for a near week, but the minute I take my shirt off to get comfortable, you go all girly girl on me. Gee girly girl? Tayuya sputtered, blushing madly, this time with anger. Now you listen here, shithead, Tayuya of the Sound 4 is no pansy-ass princess. She growled, marching over and poking him in the chest, more like I'm worried that you'll try to take advantage of me while I'm asleep. Naruto deadpanned at her. How do I look like, pervy sage? A loud sneeze was heard down the hall. Naruto shook his head, running his hand through his hair. And there's no way that I'd do that. For one thing, yeah, I'm a bit of a perv, but there's no way in hell I'd ever force myself on a girl. 2. You'd happily beat anyone that did that to you to death, and dance on their tombstone. Damned right I would, she poked him again, then gave a wicked smile of her own. 2 could play this game. Fine, you want to get comfy, then me, too. Naruto's jaw slackened, huh? Then blushed dark red as Tayuya started undressing. Wah. At least let me turn around first. The blonde Jinchuriki yelled, turning about quickly. Why? He heard Tayuya ask, you've seen me naked before. Are you ever gonna let me live that down? And you've seen me in a two-piece, which is basically underwear, so what the hell's wrong with this? She asked, a smile evident in her voice as he heard her clothes hitting the floor. Says the girl that was freaking out at seeing me without a shirt won just 5 minutes ago. Naruto muttered, and felt a pillow at him in the back of the head. Hey. Hey is for horses, Tayuya giggled, and Naruto turned a glare at the girl only to gawk. Tayuya's shorts and purple kimono shirt were gone, leaving her in her undershirt that went to her lower thighs and nothing more. Damn. Naruto thought, hearing a dark chuckling from a certain furball. Tayuya noticed where his eyes were beginning to wander, and quickly snapped her fingers in front of his face. Hey, shithead, my eyes are up here. She smirked at having flustered the blonde. Naruto gulped, right, sorry, we shoulda get some sleep. Yeah, that's it. Sleep. Tayuya nearly wanted to laugh herself sick at the sight of Naruto's floundering as he retreated under the covers. No need to be embarrassed. She muttered before joining him, sighing as she enjoyed the feeling of the soft bedding. Kami, I almost can't remember the last time we slept in a bed. She mumbled, scooting closer to him, and facing away from him. Almost makes me wish we could stay for a little longer than a month. Naruto chuckled, finding a little courage. Yeah, I know. I'm even starting to miss the cot I call a bed back home. He said, and felt her sidle up to his back. Blushing as she snuggled against him. Comfy? Yeah, she mumbled against his back. You're always so warm, is that the fox's doing? Naruto shrugged, dunno, but for as long as I can remember, I've never actually gotten really cold, or even sick for that matter. He said, remembering the few times as a child that he'd actually slept on the streets. Comes in handy a lot. I bet. She wrapped her arms around his middle, sighing a little as she stared at his bare back. Naruto? Naruto stiffened. Yeah? Orochimaru as a really big bass close to here, she said quietly, a shiver rolling through her. She felt Naruto shivered, too. But it wasn't for the same reason. Naruto, if she could see his face, was gritting his teeth at the mention of the Hebe Sannin. How far? Not far at all. Tayuya shook her head against his back. It's one of his most used bases. We've actually gone past a lot of old ones he doesn't use anymore. What? Naruto gasped, turning about to look at her in disbelief, but you promised Pervy Sage that you'd. I know. Tayuya snapped, hiding her face from him. I know I promised, but those bases were useless to you. I wasn't kidding when I said they were abandoned. He took everything from them that could be used to either find him or hinder any plans he had. Naruto growled, still, you should have told us. We could have destroyed them, or something, maybe found something on him. He said, but the girl shook her head. Naruto sighed, Tayuya-chan, are you afraid? She didn't answer, but she stiffened against him, giving him all the answers he need. Naruto wrapped his arms around her, and held her tightly. You know I'm never gonna let him hurt you again. You're my friend, so I'd protect you from anything, even a snake like him. Tayuya nodded, I know you would, but he is the cruelest, most twisted monster I've ever met. I know I act tough, and say I'll kill him, but the truth of it is, he terrifies me. Naruto was shocked at Tayuya's sudden outburst. It was the first time since Kiri that she had said something akin to this, and this time she was sober. Tayuya. Tayuya clutched at him tightly. No, you don't understand. I've seen what he can do. She said, when I was brought to him, I was already scared, but then, he tore me apart. Her voice cracked, and Naruto felt a wetness against his chest, and realized that she was crying. When he started training me, I was thrown in with the shinobi that already had the curse mark, and they were all too far gone to be called human. And then I got mine. She reached up and touched the spot where her seal had once been. It was the most painful thing that's ever happened to me, even after getting a tree thrown on top of me. When he bit me, I felt like my insides were boiling, and my bones were melting, and then I saw what I looked like. I can still feel it, too. Naruto's eyes widened, but the mark's gone, Tayuya-chan. Tayuya shook her head, he only deactivated it. I can still feel it there, he could use it to take control of me at some point if he wanted. I won't let that happen, he growled, forcing her to look up at him with his hand under her chin. I'll get to work on the seal I was planning to use on Niji first thing in the morning, then we can get rid of any seal that was placed on you by that bastard. He smiled at her, you'll be free. Tayuya's eyes softened, glistening with unshed tears, and hid her face in his chest again. Just promise me, if we find him there, and it's a pretty fucking big chance, you won't fight him. He's too strong for you. Naruto smirked. No. What? Tayuya snapped up to glare at him, only get the shock of her life when she felt his lips on her forehead. Her face burned. Naruto leaned back, smiling at the girl's wide-eyed look, and the blush on her cheeks. If we find him, and we will, I'm going toe-to-toe with him, and I'll burn him to ash, just like those Kumotems that tried to take Ranmaru-chan, only this time, I won't be so nice to warn him. Then I can knock Sasuke's dumbass out and drag him home. Tayuya bit her lip, still feeling the tingle left by his kiss, even if it was on her forehead. Then, just don't die, okay? Promise. Naruto smiled, closing his eyes, and letting sleep overtake him. Tayuya smiled at him and curled up against him, following him into sleep. == The next morning, Naruto woke earlier than he planned, if only to get in some extra practice. Tayuya was still sleeping soundly, using his arm as a pillow as usual. He grinned, and created a shadow clone to substitute himself with so he could move. Seeing Tayuya mumble in her sleep at the slight interruption in her slumber, Naruto smiled and moved out of the room, not bothering with a shirt, and padded down the hall quietly. From what he could tell, his friends weren't up yet, but the monks were. He could sense them all around, in the courtyard mostly. He reached the entrance and found a large group moving through their morning exercises and katas. Good morning, Naruto-kun. Naruto spun around and found Chiriku smiling at him. You're up rather early for one coming in so late last night. Was there anything troubling you? Naruto just grinned. No, I actually enjoyed my sleep for once in the past week. I just wanted to find a quiet spot so I could train. He gave the monk a curious look. Would that disturb anyone here? Chiriku shrugged. That all depends on what you're working on. We do have a training area for small-scale ninjutsu, but for something large. It's nothing like that, Naruto said. I'm working on advanced nature manipulation, and a seal I promised to someone. Still smiling, the blonde showed him the white gold flames of his Shikuten Jutsu. I just need a place I can create about 50 clones to work on the manipulate while I work the seal myself. Chiriku offered the boy an impressed smirk. Practicing the art of sealing at your age? That's quite impressive. Not really, Naruto said bashfully. My calligraphy sucks, but the seals work just fine, but the one I want to get down is a little tricky, so is there some place I can go so I won't be a bother? Before Chiriku could answer, a boy bumbled out of the temple, nearly colliding with the blonde shinobi, who jumped back just in time to avoid the boy. I'm sorry, Chiriku-sensei, I overslept again. Chiriku patted the boy on the shoulder. Sora-kun, just in time. I'd like you to show our guest to the training ground down the western side, if you don't mind. He's requested a small area to get a little work done, and kindly wished not to disturb the others while they trained. The boy, Sora, looked at the blonde in question. Who the hell is this guy? Naruto gained a tick mark over his head. Uzumaki Naruto, nice to meet ya. He said stiffly, holding out his head. Sora just arched his eyebrow at him. So, fish cake? Maelstrom. Naruto roared, I hate it when people mix those up. Sora grinned. So, what? You're a shinobi? Where's your Hitaiate? He asked. I left back in my room with the rest of my things, Naruto said. I don't usually wear a lot of clothes when training nowadays, since they usually get torn to shreds, and I'm running out of spares. Chiriku nodded as if it made sense to him. A smart idea, considering the power of that Katon chakra you flared earlier. I've never seen flames like that. It's not Katon, Naruto smirked proudly, it's Shikuten. I create it by combining Futon and Katon chakras to make this new one. It's really cool, but I'm only just getting the hang of the large-scale jutsu. If Chiriku was impressed before, he was shocked now. This boy can use a pseudo-scorch release? He thought to himself, then looked at Sora. That is impressive. Would you mind showing Sora-kun how it's done? His dream is to one day surpass me, and take over this temple. Naruto looked at the gray-haired boy. Futon? Yeah, Sora nodded stiffly, not liking the fact that he was being pushed toward the stranger. Naruto just smiled. Why not? I already showed Tayuya-chan how you'll make futon, so maybe you could do something similar, huh? Boil release? Chiriku was stunned once again. Just what kind of things is Jiraiya teaching these little ones? Naruto and Sora made their way to the back of the temple, and down a small flight of stairs to a small training ground that Naruto thought would be perfect for his morning routine. Alright, let's get started. He grinned, forming his favorite hand-sai, Kagebushin no Jutsu. Sora leapt back in surprise as around 6 clones popped into existence. Holy shit. Naruto grinned. 30 of you work on our Shikuten, the others will work on water manipulation. Snap to it. Right. The clones roared as one, and go to work straight away, the Shikuten workers all finding a space to work on combining the wind and fire natures to better the techniques, and the water users finding a leaf to try and soak it with their water-based chakra. The original then turned to Sora. Alright, let's see what I can do for you before I get started on my seals. Do you have a second nature? Sora was nearly too stunned to speak at seeing so many clones, solid ones to boot. I have a weak fire nature. Naruto sighed, we'll have to work on that first. Naruto smiled, but don't worry, it won't take long for you to be able to use Katon, and then we can move on to Shikuten if I'm still around. Runt, do you feel that? It's my chakra again, yeah, and I think I know who it's coming from. Naruto kept the smile on his face as he gazed at the slowly smiling face of Sora, another Kyuubi no Jinchuriki. Chapter 19. Naruto sat in place, examining the seal in front of him. The matrix itself was complex, far too complex for him to even attempt yet without testing it. But that was going to be a problem. The seal required a large area to work with, because it was meant to remove powerful seals, like Juin no Jutsu. The idea that he could somehow use the seal to rid Neji of his curse mark was once his biggest goal, but now he had other ideas. Tayuya had revealed to him that she still possessed her curse seal from Orochimaru made Naruto's blood boil, and there was no way he was letting her live with the fear of being controlled by him at some point. No, he had to get this jutsu down, or else let Tayuya keep being afraid. As Naruto studied, he watched as Sora tried his hand at the fire manipulation exercise of keeping the burning center of a leaf from spreading. The dark-haired boy was gritting his teeth in concentration as he tried to keep the embers going, yet no giving them enough room to burn the entire leaf. Honestly, Naruto was impressed by the young monk, which made it all the more important that he help him with his Kyuubi's chakra. He could feel it very strongly from the boy's right arm, which was wrapped tight in bandages. His train of thoughts was broken when one of his clones dispelled, giving him the information that it had gotten down the water manipulation, while passing on the word to take the next step. For that, he would need a river. Meanwhile, the clones working with his Shikuten abilities were coming along nicely. From what Kyuubi had been drilling into him, forcing two opposing chakra to join as one was damn near impossible for such a short amount of time. Thank Kami for shadow clones. A few of the clones had balls of white-hot flames between their hands, a sure sign of the Shikuten taking shape. Though still small, it was progress from what the gigantic fox had left him with. It wouldn't be much long until he could use some of the larger-scale jutsu and... You're certainly up early, a jovial voice said from the front of the blonde. He looked up to see Jiraiya smiling at him with a few onigiri in hand. Never thought I'd see the day when you skipped out on breakfast. Naruto grinned as Jiraiya handed him one of the rice balls. It's that late in the morning yet. Besides, I just wanted to get a feel for this jutsu Izanjiji showed me. If I'm right, it'll allow me to keep my promise to Neji. Jiraiya quirked an eyebrow in interest. Oh? And what are those? He asked, looking down at the sealing paper Naruto was marking, and his eyes widened. Naruto, that's... Yup, Naruto beamed. Pretty awesome, isn't it? See this matrix here? It's for a time seal that. I know what it does, Gaki, Jiraiya snapped before looking sheepish. Sorry, but that seal is incredibly dangerous. I'd seen your mother try it out once before when she was younger, and it nearly drained her of all her natural chakra, and started pulling on them, well, her tenant. It was lucky for all of us that Minato and I were watching over her at the time, or else who knows what would have happened. Naruto nodded, crossing one arm across his chest while he ate. Yeah, both Gigi and Kyuubi told me how dangerous it is, but the risk is well worth it. I mean, the Mukyo Fuinjutsu is basically the skeleton key to any seal you might come across, and that could include curse marks like Tayuya's or Sasuke's. Tayuya-chan still has her curse mark? Jiraiya asked. I'd thought it was removed by Orochimaru when she was deemed useless. Naruto shook his head angrily. No, and it's got her scared out of her mind. She thinks he could activate it again and use it to control her if he was close enough, and he is. He looked up at his sensei. She told me that his main base is somewhere nearby. It's an almost guarantee that he's there training Sasuke to do who knows what. Jiraiya's face turned cold. I see. Well, that does make things a little simpler, doesn't it? He stroked his chin in thought. Sasuke's no doubt just as strong as you are, maybe just a bit stronger, but the advantage we have is that neither of them know exactly how strong you've become. Though I'll bet that they've seen the bingo books by now, and you're pretty easy to recognize with that blonde hair, Gaki. Naruto sighed, picking his brush back up. We can worry about knocking his head off later. Right now, I want to get this seal ready. If it can counteract the Hibi team's curse seals, then we've got ourselves an ace in the hole. Jiraiya nodded in understanding. Good point. You know, you're reminding me more and more of your parents each and every day, Naruto. He reached out and ruffled the boy's hair. You've got your mom's spunk, and your dad's good looks, it won't be long before you've got your own little habanero to worry about. Naruto brushed his bangs out of his eyes and smiled. Thanks, pervy sage. == X=. Tayuya woke up feeling refreshed and rested as she stretched on the futon, reaching out and finding that she was sleeping alone. That wasn't right. She knew she'd fallen asleep in a set of strong arms the night before, and she couldn't have asked for more than that. But now those arms were gone, and so was the warm pillow that she had come to be accustomed to in the past week or so. She sat up, rubbing her eyes to clear away the sleep still there, wondering where he'd gone, but found the room empty. Naruto? The room was quiet, which made her nervous. Though they were safe at the temple, that didn't mean nothing could happen. All her years of serving a sadistic bastard made the girl's nerves as taut as razor wire. She dressed quickly in fresh clothing stored in one of Naruto's scrolls, and made her way out into the hall. Again, it was all quiet, and the girl padded down the hall quick as a mouse, finally hearing the sounds of shouts as the monks moved through their morning katas. She stepped out into the sparring area and found Neji and Ranmaru watching them as they moved. Morning, you two. Tayuya smiled brightly. What's been going on? Ranmaru smiled at her over his shoulder. Nothing, Wani-san. All that's been going on is the sparring matches between the monks. Neji thought it was a good idea for me to get a feel for another form of taijutsu in case Juken fails me. Tayuya smiled at the little boy and took a seat next to him. Great idea, though why didn't you ask Gigi to teach you the Ryu no Mai? Me and Shithead Kuin are getting pretty good at it. Ranmaru sighed. Yes, I know, but my muscles and bones aren't strong enough to go through the training. Neji-sensei said that it's because the Byakugan naturally uses quick and precise movements to attack. Hence the reason a Goken taijutsu would be senseless because his muscle mass would expand far too much to move quickly, Neji stated. The monks here use a taijutsu that relies on throwing and holds, which would indeed benefit Ranmaru Kuin's abilities, and my own since it's mainly the practicer using the target's weight and strength against them. Tayuya sighed and sat back while watching the monks. I guess that makes sense, but what about your chakra control over the Tensigen? She asked, looking at the boy. I haven't seen you use it in a while, and I know that Gigi was training you in the water walking exercise. Neji shrugged in answer. Well, we haven't had much time to train with everything that's been going on. Don't forget that we've had bounty hunters and bandits to deal with. But I must say, he smiled at the young Byakugan user, you handled yourself very well in the last ambush. I think you're shaping up to be a fine shinobi, Ranmaru Kuin. Ranmaru blushed under that praise of his sensei. He then looked at the redhead. Nei-san, what about your training? Didn't Naruto and I say something about helping you with futon? Tayuya nodded. Yeah, that's right, but I think I need some pointers on combining the chakra. She laughed at that. You know, it's amazing, to think that something like Naruto's Shikuten is teachable. She kicked her feet a little and thought, what my old sensei wouldn't give to get his hands on that little secret. Neji sighed, or what he'd do to get his hands on Ranmaru's eyes if he ever found out about them. Tayuya reached up and patted said boy on the head, smiling at him. Yeah, no way is that gonna happen with me and Shithead around. Nah, Wani-san, Ranmaru said, how come you call Ni-san names like that? Tayuya gave him a confused look. Like what? Neji grinned at her. I think he means the way you call him, Shithead, all the time. He said, honestly, I'm a little surprised myself. You like him, right? Eh? Tayuya's face lit up like a furnace. What the hell are you talking about? Ranmaru wisely got himself out of the line of fire as Tayuya's glare threatened violence. Neji himself was contemplating making a run for it. Though he was confident in his skills, he did not want to get in a fight with a girl that could cause an entire area to explode with only 2 jutsu. But before he could make an excuse, a loud shout and an explosion erupted from the back of the temple. Tayuya and Neji jumped up in surprise, along with all of the monks turning in the direction of the large smoke plume rising from the back. Tayuya gained a large vein on her head. Why do I get the feeling that Shithead just fucked up big time? Meanwhile, ow, 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 why the hell did that have to happen? Naruto wondered as he picked himself up off the ground, his form smoldering, and thanking whatever gods there were that he was only half-dressed, or else another set of robes would be down the drain. Over by the wall he had been working on the seal was an imprint about Jiraiya's size blackened with ash, and not a moment later who should fall out of the wall but said pervert, sending up a puff of smoke. Remind me never to let you around explosive tags, Gaki. He groaned. Sora, on the other hand, was laughing his ass off, rolling on the ground and holding his sides. Oh, man, that was hilarious. Why you should have seen your faces. Sora laughed, pointing at the pair. How the hell do you cause a non-explosive seal to go off like that? Ah, shut up, the blonde Jinchuriki groaned, dusting himself off. I told you it was tricky. Gah. But who knew it was gonna blow lit that? That wasn't even explosive tag paper. Jiraiya picked himself up and dusted himself off. You just overcharged it with chakra, but you had it all right. Just tighten the Osiru Fuin you have, and you should be able to make the proper adjustment. Naruto rotated his shoulder, making sure everything was in place. Yeah, but do you think I can test it on Dash? Hey! What the hell are you two trying to do? Tayuya's voice cut in, and the trio turned to see her, Niji, Ranmaru and the monks coming toward them. Tayuya skidded to a halt as soon as she spotted the blonde. Naruto, what the fuck happened to you? Naruto grinned, scratching the back of his head bashfully. Well, I sorta overcharged a seal was working on. Tayuya ignored him, and stepped forward, noticing a huge gash across Naruto's right shoulder. It was noticed by the present monks as well, and would have caused quite a stir, if that same gash wasn't closing before their very eyes. It was slow, yet it was healing at a visibly faster rate than humanly possible, but none were as shocked as the face of Sora. His eyes were wide with unhidden shock as they nearly turned white, his pupils almost disappearing. The wound closed, forming a scar on the blonde's shoulder, and Sora snapped out of his daze, shaking his head, and stepping forward. How did you do that? Do what? Naruto asked, rotating his shoulder again to get the soreness out. Sora pointed an accusing finger at him. That. Your shoulder. How the hell did you do that? I thought I was the only one that. Sora! Chiriku shouted. Sora immediately closed his mouth. But the damage was done. All the other monks were looking at the boy, as well as the blonde shinobi. Naruto turned around and glared at them. Listen up, I've had enough glares to last me a lifetime, so if you're so afraid of me, then get the hell away from me. He turned back to the young monk. The reason I heal so quickly is because I'm a Jinchuriki. His statement drew a large gasp from the monks, and a hard glare from Jiraiya, but the blonde just kept going. If you don't know what that is, then let me show you. He flared up his chakra to a thin, visible layer over his skin, prompting the Tori no Fuin on his stomach to appear. This right here holds the Kyuubi no Kitsune inside me. Because of that, people who were too stupid to tell a kunai from a storage scroll hated me and mistreated me because they hated the bijou. Sora's eyes widened. My healing was already accelerated because I'm part Uzumaki on my mother's side, Naruto explained while flexing his shoulder, but the fox multiplies my healing tenfold. He also gives me almost unlimited chakra thanks to his own reserves. Like him, I have powerful wind and fire nature chakra. My speed is elite Jonin level, and my strength mid Jonin level. Sora listened to all this, and looked down at his bandaged hand, and, why do you look so normal? This caught Jiraiya's attention. Normal? Sora, though hesitant, began unwrapping his arm. I don't know why, but, somehow, my arm. He finished with the bandages, revealing his arm, or what used to be his arm. Naruto grit his teeth as he took in the shape of the appendage. It was more like a grayskin claw, with sharp spikes poking out of the forearm. Is this the work of a bijou? Jiraiya stepped forward to examine the boy. There's definitely some sort of chakra corruption, but I can't detect a seal on you anywhere, Naruto? He turned to the blonde, who was already stepping over to him. Naruto wasn't listening. Kyuubi? Yes, that's definitely my chakra's doing. But the pervert is wrong, there's a seal in place all right. But it's pathetically weak. Yeah, you're right, Naruto thought. Think we can do something about it? You'd have to let me absorb my yang chakra from him, and then use the same seal as your father did on you to seal away the yin chakra. And before you ask, I can't simply absorb all of it, because that would be the same as taking a bijou out of him, he'd be killed in minutes. So, what would happen to the chakra still inside him? Oh, it would shape itself inside the seal, and form itself into a smaller, weaker version of myself until it grew into its chakra. In other words, like your father, this run would become the Jinchuriki to a Ien Kyuubi no Kitsune. Get it? I think so, Naruto nodded, and looked up at Sora. We'll have to do something about this, and soon. Jiraiya nodded in agreement. What's the plan, Gaki? Naruto sighed. Well, I'll have to use one of the void seals to absorb some of the chakra, but you'll need to draw the rest of inside an 8 trigram seal. Naruto said, then grinned at the monk. Don't worry, this'll be way easier than what I was trying a moment ago. Sora gulped. I hope so, I really don't want to blow up. X equals. Sora's nervousness only increased as he watched the two seal artists work. Jiraiya was helping Naruto in a spare room that he asked to use for the sealing. Oddly enough, the seal was incredibly large. All over the room's floors, walls, and ceiling was the matrix of the seal. In the center of the room were 2 round sealing points devoid of any ink save for a matrix encircling both points just large enough for a body to lay. Naruto, are you sure I'm doing this bit right? Jiraiya asked, I'd rather not botch this up since we're dealing with a potential Kyuubi here. Naruto looked over his shoulder at the matrix he was finishing up. That's just right, actually. That's the bit that draws the chakra into the desired dimension. I already have the sister seal inscribed on my hand, so it will definitely work. Chiriku, who was present to watch over the young monk, was astonished. This is incredibly complex, are you sure about this? Jiraiya just grinned at him. Trust me, this kid's as good, if not better than me, and his old man put together. But Naruto, this looks similar to the seal you were working on in the courtyard earlier? Naruto nodded, motioning for Sora to come over. It is, because the two seals are sister seals. One is called the Mukuo Fuin, which is used to break other seals, like breaking a contract, hence the nickname, Void Contract Seal. What about this one? Jiraiya asked. I've heard of void seals before, but this is the first time I've ever seen one, let alone two, and I know for a fact that they're dangerous. Naruto had Sora lay on the blank space in the center of the room, before leaping to the ceiling to the opposite spot, and drew a seal for space on it. Well, this one is the Kohaku Uchu no Fuin. It basically draws an object, person, or chakra into a space of the user's choosing. In this case, it's going to draw a direct line to my seal, but if I wanted to, I could open a space into a true void, as in a dark hole of nothingness. I'd rather not try that one. Sora grinned nervously. I don't think I would either. Naruto chuckled and leapt back down. Alright, let's get this show on the road. He nodded to Jiraiya, who formed a few hand seals, summoning an altar beneath Sora for the next part. Naruto began running rapidly through seal after seal so fast that Sora only caught a few of them, but it ended in the snake. Uzumaki Ryu. Kohaku Uchu Fuin. Chapter 20. Pain. That was the first thing that jumped to the forefront of Sora's mind as the seal Naruto activated did its work. The seal Naruto had worked on him was burning his skin like fire as the blonde seal glowed on his palm. As he began to struggle against the pain, he felt a pair of hands on his shoulders, looking up to see Jiraiya holding him down. Don't move, Sora-kun, the old man cautioned, this is the important part. Naruto's absorbing the yang chakra of the fox from you, so he can seal off the yin half. Screw this up now, and both of you might run wild. Chiriku was also at his side. Be strong, Sora. Take out lessons to heart. This pain, this fear you feel, it is all an illusion. Naruto grunted above him in discomfort. Illusion? If this ain't real, then I'm an Uchiha. The young monk looked up at the blonde, seeing that he was just as much in pain as he was as a thin veil of red chakra bubbled up and around him, forming a line to the blonde seal. That's when it got dangerous. The burning sensation Sora felt became 10 times worse, and Naruto openly yelled in agony. Sora was in worse shape as he started thrashing against the pain as Jiraiya and Chiriku forced him to hold still. Almost there. Naruto howled. Hurry! Sora screamed out, thrashing against the restraining arms of his master and the sage. The seal array glowed a dangerous red around them. Sora cracked his eyes open, and nearly lost it right there. His body was covered in a cloak of the red demonic chakra, and his arm was morphing into the claw he'd come to fear. Chiriku and Jiraiya were both growling in pain as the chakra burned them, but they kept their hands right where they were for his sake. He hazarded a glance at the blonde sealing apprentice, and his eyes widened, his pain forgotten. Naruto's body was all but invisible underneath the cloak of chakra as 3 massive tails made from the stuff billowed out behind him. Naruto was on the edge, and he knew it. There was such an increase in the chakra of the fox that he thought the seal might give way to the sheer force of the invading chakra. Runt, you'd better hold on. The Kyuubi roared. Aizen didn't shove the knowledge of these seals into you just so you could cop out like this. Could you shut? Naruto roared. I'm trying. Suddenly, as if some sort of cord had been cut, Sora and Naruto's pain stopped, and both fell back, one to the ground, the other back onto the sealing altar. Their chakra cloaks faded back into their bodies as the two caught their breath. Damn it, Naruto groaned, rubbing his chest. I knew it'd be rough, but Kami damn it. That was almost as bad as getting his with Sasuke's Chidori. Jiraiya and Chiriku stepped back, examining their hands, both of which were badly burned from the contact with the Kyuubi's corrosive chakra. That the worst bit out of the way, though, the old Sannin said, looking over the exhausted Sora. Now comes my turn. Chiriku looked at the man in concern. Are you certain? You're burned quite badly, and perhaps we should take the moment to let the boys rest a bit? Naruto shook his head. No, the sooner we seal off the fox's chakra, the better off Sora will be. Naruto said, right now, that chakra seal he has on him is leaking the chakra into his system at odd intervals. Sooner or later the chakra will take control of him, and create another Kyuubi. And he'll be killed. Sora looked over at the blonde tiredly. I'm fine, we should get this over with while we can. I don't I don't want to hurt anyone again, like last time. He breathed heavily, looking over at his master. Please, Chiriku-sensei. Chiriku sighed and stepped aside. By your leave, Jiraiya-sama. Jiraiya cracked his knuckles and stepped up the boy. First, I need a toad to inscribe the sealing key onto, he said, letting the blood from his wounds drip down to his fingers, and slammed his hand to the floor. Kochio's, Jirokai. A puff of smoke later found the four staring at a green and black toad with 2 rings around its stomach. Good of you to come, Kai. I could use your scroll. The toad croaked. Why would you need me, Jiraiya-sama? He asked, looking around, and spied the sealing altar. Ah, I get, this Gaki has Bijou chakra inside him. Jiraiya nodded. Yes, and that's why we need you. It's the Kyuubi again. The Kyuubi, you say? Kai looked over at the blonde. But I thought this Gaki here was its container. Naruto nodded. I've only got the yang half of it. Sora has a partial Kyuubi inside him, and it's growing stronger. If we don't do this now, we're looking at 2 Kyuubi running loose in the span of 12 years. Jirokai smiled at the boy. Smart one, this Gaki, just like his old man. Ma and Pa will like him. Alright, ya old perv, I'll help ya out. His body extended, and Kai unfurled a scroll from his body. Make your mark here as the sealer, and I'll need some chakra from the Gaki. Jiraiya did as instructed, and pressed his hand against the blank scroll, and the matrix for the Tori no Fuin appeared, his hand boxed in by a small square where his hand was placed. Sora sat up and weakly moved over to the scroll and placed his hand in the same spot. Alright, now we just need to make the seal, Jiraiya explained as Sora laid back down on the altar. Sora, this is gonna be a little strange, but you'll be fine. There shouldn't be any pain except a little discomfort from the chakra entering your system. Are you ready? Sora nodded, and closed his eyes. 8 trigram sealing method, seal. Even as Sora's eyes closed, a bright flash of white light enveloped him. X equals. Sora opened his eyes to find himself in what looked like the courtyard of the temple. It was strange, because there was no one around. If he was still at the temple, then where were the other monks? He got up from the ground and hurried toward the temple. That's when he felt it. A presence, small, yet strong. Inside the doors. Cautiously, the boy grasped the wooden frame and slid the door open. Sora's breath left him as he took in the sight before him. There, curled up in the center of the room, and looking dead at him, was a dark brown, 9-tailed fox, his Kyuubi. Though it was smaller than what he was expecting, it was very large for a fox, and would give a rhino fits. It gazed at him with intelligent amber eyes that shone like fire. Who are you? Sora gulped. My name is Sora. I'm a monk in training at the Fire Temple. The Kyuubi cocked its head. Fire Temple, yes, I see it through your memories. Sora grimaced slightly. You can see my memories? Yes, the fox dipped its head. When it suits me, I can look through your memories to gain knowledge of the outside world. You do not approve of this? Some of my memories are better left forgotten, Sora said sadly, but then noticed something about the fox. Its voice was soft, harsh, yet soft, like, you're a girl? The she-fox dipped her head again. I am. And I assume you're referring to the time when you lost control of yourself because of that poorly scribed seal that was placed on you to hold me here? Sora nodded. The other monks still look at me like a monster. That is the fate of all that are called Jinchuriki, she said. No matter what, so long as I am inside you, you will draw the hatred of all that know what you hold inside. Sora felt a small smile tugging at his lips. That sounds like something Chiriku-sensei would say. He said, I'll be honest, I thought you'd be, well, evil. The she-fox gave a throaty laugh, showing off her fangs. Must a Bijou be evil? No, Ningen, others see my kin as evil because they cannot openly control us, which is why there is a need for people like you to house our power, but you cannot stay with the monks any longer. What? Why? Sora asked loudly. I know they're a bunch of stiffs, but unlike my other half, which desires amusement from his vessel, she said, I desire knowledge. Studying to be a monk is all well and good, Ningen, but I would like to see the world. Even if it is through the eyes of another. Sora sighed. I'll admit that I've always wanted to travel, but living here has dulled that sense, thus making you afraid of what lies beyond the temple walls. The fox dipped her head. Perhaps you should travel with friends, that blonde boy who holds my other half, and the rest of his companions. They would make the journey easier, or perhaps you could find yourself anew through the acts of the shinobi. Admit it that you would rather be using your skills for something other than meditation. Sora considered her words, and smiled. All right, you've got a deal, Kyuubi-san. The she-fox laughed again. My name, little one, is Korin. X equals. Sora opened his eyes once more to find Chiriku looking down at him and smiling. Welcome back, Sora-kun. Sora gave his mentor a smile of his own. It's good to be back, Chiriku-sensei. Where are the others? Chiriku smiled and pointed over to the left, where a prone Niji lay. You've been out for quite a while. Niji-san seal has already been removed, though it was touch and go for a few minutes, everything turned out fine. He's sleeping the effects of the seal off. And, what about that girl? Sora asked. Chiriku's smile dropped. They're examining her seal as we speak. X equals. This is really complicated, Jiraiya sighed as he took in the bare skin of Tayuya's left shoulder, where her mark was. Having used a seal to bring out the old one, Orochimaru's handiwork was quite a monstrosity. I can make out a servitude seal, a seal to cause pain or death depending on the user, and this one here causes a drug to enter the body. That explains the withdrawal she went through a few months ago. But what's this? Naruto was also peering at the mark. It says, nature, but I don't understand the meaning. You think this one has something to do with the change she goes through? Nature, huh? Jiraiya thought for a moment, then something seemed to click. Tayuya, did the chakra from your seal come for you, or was it drawn to you? Tayuya, who was blushing profusely from the attention she was getting from both of them, growled, fuck if I know, I just used the damn thing to get the job done. Now would you hurry up? This is fucking embarrassing. Naruto grinned at her. What was that you were saying last night about? Suck it, Blondie. Tayuya flipped him the bird. Jiraiya grinned at their antics and sighed. Well, I think the theory about this thing using natural chakra is pretty solid. That would explain the demon-like transformations of the marked Odanin. He said, then frowned. This is not going to be easy. A seal like this one is dangerous, especially if it draws in natural chakra like that. It could kill her, or maybe cause her to turn to stone if it overloads her system. Naruto nodded. I'm not so sure what this natural chakra stuff is, pervy sage, but you're right about this being dangerous. And that seal is layered all the way down. I'll have to do this in layers, just like the seal. Tayuya looked back at him. What the fuck's that mean? Naruto grinned and placed his hand on her shoulder. It means that the seal is just a bunch of other seals layered on top of one another, and the most dangerous one is at that bottom, and I've gotta go from top to bottom if I wanna do this right. Couldn't have said it better myself, Jiraiya nodded, stepping away from them. I'll leave you two alone. Good luck, Gakis. Tayuya watched him go with an eyebrow raised. What the fuck's his problem? She asked, looking back at the blonde. How come he's leaving? Naruto blushed. Well, you see, I need a pretty clear shot at the seal to do this, and well, your, kimono, it's in the way. Nodding without a second thought, Tayuya shrugged out of the top, leaving her in her sports bra. Naruto then had to cut the strap of her left shoulder to get a better shot at the seal. Okay, this is gonna take a bit of doing, but we will get this thing off of you, Tayuya-chan, Naruto said confidently, cracking his knuckles. It's gonna hurt like hell, but it won't last long, and we can take breaks. Tayuya smiled at him over her shoulder. You know I trust you, shithead Kuin, just, get this thing off me. She shivered. I've always felt so dirty once I got this thing. Naruto grit his teeth over that. Alright, that thing's coming off. He started flashing through hand seals, chanting each other their names to focus more, and Tayuya watched as the seals around the room lit up blue in coloration, and sparks started flying off of them around the room. Tayuya gulped loudly in nervousness as the seal grew brighter. Suddenly, Naruto clapped his hands together loudly, and thrust his right palm against her shoulder. Mukyo Fuin. A searing pain shot through her body as she felt a shattering sensation. She yelled out, cursing loudly, and the pain was suddenly gone. Naruto grunted, that's one down. 3 more to go, Tayuya finished weakly. Naruto started up again, going through the motions faster this time, and hit her again. This time, the pain hit them both as the next seal put up more of a fight. Tayuya nearly screamed in pain as the seal started to come apart slowly, along with Naruto grunts of pain as the chakra exuding from the seal itself tried to enter him. Finally, with one last push, the seal shattered just like the first one. This time, however, Naruto's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the floor, panting heavily. Damn, that snake seriously didn't want anyone breaking that curse mark. He growled, wiping sweat from his brow. Tayuya turned to him, sweat beading her own face. Yeah, I can feel it. She smiled at him. I feel better already. It's like, I don't know, I feel free. What's left? Naruto sighed, taking a rest. Well, that last one I destroyed was the servitude seal, meaning he can't control you anymore, and before that, it was the drug seal that dulled pain, or heightened senses. The next one's gonna have to be the one that causes pain and death, and finally it's that last natural seal. Tayuya nodded to the tired blonde. Think you can get the next one off without passing out on me? Naruto stood on shaky legs but gave her a determined grin. You better believe I will. I told you we'd get this thing off, and we will. Tayuya nodded and prepared herself for the coming pain as Naruto went through the motions again. But this time, when the seal on his palm struck her shoulder, she did scream, and Cammy did she scream. The pain was worse than anything she'd ever felt, even when she'd gotten her legs crushed. The seal shattered almost instantly, however, and took both of them by surprise as the seal gave way. But neither of them knew what would happen from the seal's destruction. The final seal, the one that gathered the needed chakra for the seal's activation, activated. Tayuya felt it long before she knew what was happening. The familiar rush of power coursing through her system, and the feeling of awareness that came with it, right behind the physical changes. As Naruto sat panting, she looked at her hands and began to shake all over as she saw the claws and dark Ned's skin. She reached up, and felt her face, touching one tooth and finding that it had become a fang. Her hands went higher, and higher until she reached the top of her head, and felt the horns. No. No, no 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 no. This can't be happening. She screamed mentally, turning toward the still recovering blonde. He looked up at her as she turned, and she saw, for that one horrible moment, that his eyes went wide. No! Tayuya screamed and rushed away from him, crashing through the screen doors and pelting into the courtyard. Tayuya! Naruto's voice followed her. Tayuya ignored him, and kept running. Past the startled monks, and straight into the forest. Without thinking, Naruto was after her in a heartbeat, hearing the shouts of the monks, and Jiraiya behind him, but he was too focused on the fleeing girl. Tayuya, wait! Go away! She screamed at him. Stop running from me, damn it! Naruto roared as he took to the trees. What the hell's wrong with you? He growled, and pushed as much wind chakra into his legs as possible for him, and shot forward, catching the girl off guard, and tackling her to the ground. Tayuya fought to get away from him as they tumbled, but the blonde had grip on her that he had no intention of losing. He held her tight against him, even as she beat at his chest, and her horns jabbed at him. He would hold on until she calmed down. Finally, she sobbed, her shoulders shaking with sobs. You fucking idiot! She yelled, burying her face in his chest. Why couldn't you leave me alone? She sobbed against his chest. When I look like this. Her body was shaking as he held her, and reached up to stroke her hair, making her stiffen at his touch. When I met you the first time, after Pervy Sage found you, I thought you had a really cute laugh. He said, smiling against her hair as her sobs stopped. You were loud, mean, and had the foulest mouth I'd heard since meeting the Inuzuka, but I still thought you were prettier than most every girl I'd ever met. Tayuya's face started to heat up from his words. How could he be saying such things? To her of all people? That night at the festival, when we were talking on the pier, you felt so small when I had to carry you back, Naruto went on, still running his fingers over her hair. I knew right then that I wanted to make you smile, no matter what I had to do. And when Raiga nearly killed you, I felt so lost. I couldn't imagine being without you. Tayuya looked up at him with black and gold eyes, tears streaming down her face. Even if I look like this? Naruto's face was calm, and as gentle as it had always been when looking at her. You look beautiful to me, always. He leaned in, catching her by surprise with the gentlest touch of their lips. Tayuya's eyes went wide for a moment as she tried to process what was happening before giving in and letting them close. Well, it seems we caught them at a bad time, didn't we, Itachi-kun?